What's going on, guys? We're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guest is Marc Lobliner. Is that right?
Perfect, man.
I've listened to it 3 or 4 times right before I came out here. And then I even wrote it as Lobliner. I'm not going to mess this up because usually it's ones like that I'll mess up, and the real difficult ones I don't screw up because I rewrite them as I would say them, which is totally different than what people would expect. I just lost my headphones. Yeah. Headphones, they're back. Okay, cool. So before I get into Marc's background, which will probably take an hour if I go through everything with that, I just want to do a couple shout outs really quick for our sponsors. The first sponsor is MarekHealth.com. Take care of the labs, they take care of longevity, preventative health, all those things. You guys have seen the ads on the podcast, you've heard the ads on the podcast. What I want to call out here is they have a new panel that they put up a few weeks ago, which is a checkup panel, which if you go to the description, you click on there, the checkup panel isn't as comprehensive as the full panel, which means it's not going to be as big of an investment for you guys. And it also covers all the things that you need to have more closely checked more frequently. Testosterone levels, cholesterol levels, AST levels, liver enzyme levels, all those there are covered on that. And if you use the discount code TABLETALK, you'll save 10% off your first order. Second call out is I want to talk a little bit about the crew that we set up to help support the podcast. The Table Talk crew is one way that you guys can help support the podcast, as well as hitting the subscribe button, notification, and all the other stuff, because you've heard me, I don't want to say bitch, but I'm going to say bitch. You've heard me bitch over the last month or so that 85% of our viewers on the podcast don't subscribe, and it drives me crazy because I don't understand how that can possibly be. So hit the subscribe button real quick. What the crew is, guys, is it's an extra podcast episode that comes out each month, which is just an AMA of questions being asked to me that I just ramble, rant, and blab like you guys have seen for years before, but have asked why I don't do it on the podcast. We may actually do some ranting today because Marc's kind of known for doing some of that, so it could go off the rails here and there. So the extra podcast is on there. We also have a Discord server with over 30 ebooks. We have technique form checks that are on there. We have a Q&A on there. We have Elite FTS team members that are helping with your training questions, helping to build programs, helping to analyze and break down your form and technique on the squat, bench, and deadlift. We also have a crew training retreat scheduled, which will be the end of August. That's 2 days out here, training with a limited number of people. The registration link for that is in the Discord. So guys, join the crew by going to the description box and hitting join the crew. It will more than pay for itself 10 times over, guaranteed, or we'll give you your money back because it's not that much. So it's not that big of a deal. It's not like you're going to lose your ass on that. So the other aspect, as I bumble through here, because usually there's the ads, is anything that you purchase from elitefts.com, use the discount code TABLETALK, get 10% off your first order. And now I'm done with the ads. Marc, okay, so here we go. So Marc is the CMO of Tiger Fitness, CEO of MTS Nutrition, creator of the Outright Bar. This is where it gets crazy. So partner of Ambrosia Collective, 015 Nutrition. There's about 15 things that are on this list here.
I think you've said enough.
So I could keep going through here, but also an IFBB pro, a father and a husband.
Yes.
So a lot of what we're going to kind of tap through that I like to talk about is trying to balance all of these things through this. But I'm going to go a little different than probably other podcasts that you've gone on, where they start from, well, how'd you start lifting weights and moving forward?
Yeah.
I want to go backward. So what I want to do is I want to start with the show that you just did, which was your first pro show, which was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then we'll work back, to how you got into all this, because I think this will be an interesting conversation, because as you look back, it also creates a little different perspective. Because as we speak, I'll be like, fuck, I wish I would have known that then. As we go back through, instead of going forward, then all you think about is either the really, really good things or the really, really bad things.
Yeah.
Instead of the whole entirety of how it kind of came to be. So how did your last show go? How did your first pro show?
I looked the best I've ever looked.
Yes.
But I got my ass kicked, man. Man, those guys are amazing. You know, I came back in 2021 to bodybuilding because I was boxing for almost 7 years because my wife didn't like me bodybuilding because I wasn't able to balance it all. So going to the New York Pro, just getting on stage with those guys I've seen in magazines that I'm looking at them like, wow, that's amazing. I got on stage and I realized that I wasn't all in enough on bodybuilding. I didn't take my off season seriously. I stayed too lean year round. I didn't put on enough muscle. And I didn't take training and dieting as serious as I should have. I've been riding my lean genetics this whole time. And I was able to get a pro card. But when you stand on stage, when you're backstage with these guys, and their muscle bellies have muscle bellies, and their veins have veins, and you're like, what the hell kind of aliens are these? And you've won a pro qualifier, but realize these are all amateurs. So there's usually an amateur show, there's like 3 good guys. Mm-hmm. And the rest you're like, okay, you know, how are you sure you should be here? You know, one of those. At a pro show, it's all the best of the best of the best. And the New York Pro is the hardest, and I'm so glad I did it because I got on that stage and I realized that not only did I get my ass kicked, but I think I can beat them. I know I could beat them. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to stop at nothing to beat them. If there's one thing people will say about me is that if I set my mind to something, I'm going to at least try my best to do it. And luckily for me, a lot of times it works. But I did realize that I did a disservice to that stage by not taking it serious enough. I did a disservice by not putting in that time up until, and also I'm not going to blame anything. Like I had a huge travel schedule where up until 2 weeks out from the show, I was on the road 3 days a week, 4 days a week. So I wasn't able to have a really good prep. My meals were literally chicken and rice from Chipotle. These guys were packing every meal. They outworked me. And that pisses me off because this is all something I could control. But I didn't prioritize it and I was thinking like an amateur. Mm-hmm. And now I've chosen to do the Chicago Pro in 2024. I believe it's going to be around the July 20th timeframe. And I have no intention on getting anything but first. And I'm saying it, and I'm saying it in the truth. And it was the most amazing experience of my life, Dave. It was because I spent the whole weekend with my daughter. My 17-year-old daughter, who's my best friend, came with me. We spent the whole weekend together. It was a tremendous bonding experience. We had a great time. I saw some great people. Kareth Bajo is an amazing guy. All the other pros are the nicest guys. It's the opposite of what people think bodybuilding is. Mm-hmm. They think narcissistic sociopaths. They're the nicest group. It's the nicest fraternity I've ever been a part of. Great, amazing individuals. But I'll tell you what, every day I go to the gym now, there's 2 numbers in my head. The number of weeks I'm out, which is 59 and a half right now, and 16, because I got 16th place. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I love it, though, because I haven't lost in a long time, and I needed to lose.
So how are you going to change to become more all in, right? Because you still have all this other stuff that's going on. So are you going to travel less, say the last 4 months?
No. So basically my time is dictated by my schedule and my needs, and also the company, my partner company, Brandless, who purchased Ambrosia. So I've committed to visiting 300 plus vitamin shops by the end of the year because we have the Outright Bar and Planta in there because I made a commitment to Vitamin Shop. What it means for me is I need to stop being an excuse-making pussy. I need to pack my meals. I need to make sure I eat my meals. I need to make sure if I am on the road off season, I don't need to pack all my meals. Chicken and rice is easy. Yeah. You go to Chipotle, instead of buying 1 meal, I buy 3. There's 3 meals for the day. I make sure I get in my food. Training wise, I wasn't training hard enough. I wasn't going all in. You want to know why? I wasn't eating enough. I didn't pay attention to eating enough. I wasn't fueling my body. Since that show, since I've been paying attention to shoveling in food, I have more energy. I have more endurance. I have more strength than I've ever had in my life. I was basically I was eating the calories meant for a normal male, for a guy who has a super high metabolism, has a super high NEAT because you can tell I fidget all the damn time. I can't sit still. And a guy who trains really hard. But now I'm training even harder because I have something in my mind. And it's what's driven me to get to where I'm at in life. And I'll tell you what the best part is. Since I lost that show and my mindset has been on winning, every single part of my life has been better. Ambrosia sales through the roof. We've had record days almost every day at Tiger Fitness. Outright Bar has gotten new distribution lines everywhere. Because everywhere in life, I have that winning mindset. And that's why I encourage people to compete in something. Whether it's weekend softball, whether it's bowling, I don't care what the hell you compete in. The minute you lose that competitive drive to win, people ask all the time, why do you still compete? Why the hell would you compete? Because competition in bodybuilding, competition, even when I was boxing, competition in general makes you great. If your brain doesn't know anything. It just knows mindset. Whether you're winning at boxing, bodybuilding, or in the boardroom, or in the bedroom, right? Yeah. Like if you want a satisfied partner, you research how to please a woman or a man, whatever your thing is. It's 2023
or both.
Or both. At the same damn time. So I found that my mindset is what's going to drive me there. And I have not been maximizing. I've been focused so much on business and family, but the thing is I don't have to take away. I just have to treat every part of my life like it's important. And I'm not going to take away bodybuilding. Let's be honest. Like you're a world-class athlete. I think we call you that, right?
Yeah. Was.
It's kind of I look at it like you're kind of like a Marine, once a world-class athlete, always a world-class athlete. Mm-hmm. You have it in your genes. It's in your DNA to be great. Look at what you're doing now. Mm-hmm. Do you rest? Have you ever sat down and seen, I'm just going to take it easy today?
No.
I'm just going to be number 2. No. Do you ever wake up and think, I'm cool in number 2?
No, but where I'm going to go with this is you put so if you got three baskets, yeah. Family, work, training, and there's always more baskets. It's hard to be all in on all baskets because then I would say you're not all in. Mm-hmm. There's a way to play the instrument.
Bingo.
That makes it sound well, and ways to play it that makes it sound like shit. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of how to lean into it. So on some days I would say, yeah, you know what, family's probably not number, not, mm-hmm. I'm not going to win today on that one, but I can win on this one. And then kind of laying it out to where do I want the wins? Like, so this is a big business day for Black Friday, whatever it is. This has got to be a win day, which means these other two are probably going to be an L. And that's just kind of how my brain works. Not a total L, but you get what I'm saying. When I was younger, it was a total L. It would be a little bit different how that kind of lays into that, where it becomes more of an anchoring thing. Where to go back when you were saying you weren't training hard enough, when I hear things like that, I like to anchor it because and you work with kids too.
Yes.
What they think is hard work is different than what you think is hard work, but it's still the hardest work they've ever done.
Yes.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, is you could have trained harder had you been more fueled, but because you weren't more fueled, it wasn't there to be able to pull from. Mm-hmm. Either mentally it wasn't firing the way it should be, or just the muscle wasn't firing and doing what it should be. Correct. Would that be a fair assessment? So the effort was still there, but it was just not fueled.
Correct. And my mindset wasn't right. So I have a question for you. Do you text during your workout?
No.
Okay. I want you to come to Carbon Performance in Franklin, Tennessee. I want you to stand in our place, Legacy. I want you to look out the window at the gym. I want you to count how many people are on their phone.
Well, I'm sure, yeah.
So here's the deal. What happens is people go into things and they put half-ass effort into 2 things. If you're doing something, you give it 100% effort. When I'm in the gym for 60 minutes, it's going to be the most intense, gosh darn 60 minutes I can give in that gym. I have 60 minutes. It's my time. I'm going to get this because I got shit to do. When I'm at home with my kids, I'm going to give them my entire focus. I'm not scrolling Instagram. I'm not doing any of that. I'm playing with my kids. I'm playing wiffle ball. I'm playing football. I'm doing everything I can to be with those kids. When I'm coaching kids at Legacy, the only time I pick up my phone is to film kids doing epic stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay? What you need to do is you need to compartmentalize, focus, and prioritize. So you look at the priorities in life, kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So what's your hierarchy of needs? Obviously, family's first. If you're into God, that can be first. Or if you say, say family before God, some people get really mad. I'm like, well, God put us here for family. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have that argument. Okay, whichever one, flip-flop. Okay, you got God, family, you got business, and then you got fitness. Fitness in my list is about fourth. But fitness is the thing that brings up everything else. Like I said before, without competition, even when I was boxing, dude, I'm not good. Like, I got my ass kicked, and I loved every second of it. I loved getting punched in the face. I loved it because it humbled me. I go to the office every day. I'm the boss. I get in that boxing ring, I'm getting my ass kicked by a 22-year-old. Every single time. Every time I sparred, I'm getting killed. And it humbled me. It brought me to that nature, and it made me fight harder and work harder. So your mind just knows one thing. It knows striving for greatness, or it knows complacency. And complacency is mediocrity. So if you have a mediocre mindset, you're going to have a mediocre life. So we need to always be thinking, how can we win? And winning means different things to different people. Like, people don't need to build an empire like you did to be successful. For some people, you go, you do your 9 to 5, you go coach football for your kid. You go and you mentor. You do something, right? You do something in your community, something for somebody. But greatness is relative. How can you be better every day? So that's how I look at things. And it's all about building your legacy. When you die, when I die, do you think people are going to remember you for the car you drove, the house you lived in, how much money you made? You see John Meadows' post over there, right? John was a good friend of both of ours, I believe. Yeah. I don't remember what car John drove. I honestly don't. I've gone to lunch with him tons of times. I remember how he treated people. And if I cry, I apologize. I remember how he treated people. And I remember how he let me into his house. I remember all those times. I remember him eating a peanut butter sandwich before training. I remember John as a person. But I don't know how much money John made. I don't know any of his marketing. All I know is that John's legacy, when people talk about John, they talk about how great of a man he was. It's not about material things, it's about what you accomplished and who you helped. And John has helped more people than we can even count. So if you look at what you're going to do with your life, I want you to think about, what do people remember John for? What do people remember Jerry Ward for, who I was very close to, extremely close? And when you go through losses like that, I think you realize what's right about life. Financial allows us to accomplish things. It allows us to live and give like no one else. And that's what John and Jerry did. So that's how I look at things. Like, what is our legacy?
The way I look at legacy is a little bit different. And it was... I can use John as an example because shortly after he passed, I was speaking with Mary, and he was concerned about his legacy, and I had to remind her that his legacy is his kids.
Yes.
It's not all this other stuff. You know, that's the legacy that matters, you Correct. Know, more than anything else is that, where many years ago somebody explained or told me a story in regards to how you're going to be remembered, because I was always kind of concerned, like, well, how am I going to be remembered? And that's kind of a shitty way to live, right? Because the way it was explained to me is, if you've ever been to a wake, you know, there's the coffin, and then you have the people standing around the coffin, which are the family members, the widow, or and they're hurt. You know, they're really, really hurt because they're so close to the person that's in the coffin. Then when you move back in the room a little bit, you'll get some of the people that are sitting in the first chairs or a little bit closer, or waiting in line to console the family. They feel it too. And then as you get further back into the room, you got people who are like, so when do you think we can get out of here? You know, how long? And then you got people outside of the room who aren't even there, where too many people live their lives trying to please the people outside of the room to the expense of the people in the front of the room, right? So when I think of legacy, I think that's where my brain falls, just the way I'm programmed. Like, fuck that. Like, why do I care about the people that are going to be outside of the room?
You're right.
You know, but those people outside of the room have impact on how you can be able to build a better environment for the people who are in the room. Correct. So it's not to the, but I think a lot of people, especially in today's world, are so consumed with how people outside, not even outside of the room, but how people outside of the room with fake names, like troll names,
Yes.
like not even good trolls. You know, you remember good trolls, but
I miss the good trolls.
Yeah, not even good trolls. And that's kind of a weird thing where, but to get back to my question with how you're going to proceed training for this next show, from that difference in standpoint, it's the nutritional aspect, dialing that in a little bit
100%.
more, keeping the calories higher. Was the off season over the past year not as prioritized for you?
There was no off season.
Was
I
there?
pretty
Okay,
much
I got it.
I forget to eat. Like
Okay.
it's, you know, it's one of those things where when you're traveling and stuff, and a lot of it just wasn't a priority. It was like, I'm not hungry. So it's more about eating like a bodybuilder. And when you have a fast metabolism, like there's two types of bodybuilders: the fat guy who has to diet really hard, and the skinny guy who can't gain weight. I'm the skinny guy who can't gain weight, pretty much at this point in my life. So I just have to treat it as such. And you know, I got to train like a bodybuilder. You know, I have to get in there and I have to focus on hypertrophy. For example, my arms suck, partly genetic, partly because, I mean, we talked about this earlier, like my arms just aren't fun to train. Like I like lifting heavy weights. I like doing deadlifts. I like doing squats. I like doing heavy presses. But at the end of the day, to realize optimal growth of a single joint muscle, you just need to pound it, especially if it's not something that God gave you. Like my arms have always been weak, and I've tried to bring up here and there, but I've never actually dedicated time. So my arms, hamstrings, and shoulders need to come up. Back's thick, chest. But think about what works on me. Quads. What are those? Squats. Chest. What's that? Bench. And back. What's that? Deadlifts. So all the fun stuff, because I come from a powerlifting background, that's what I started doing when I started training. So for me, that's what's fun. For me, I like lifting heavy weights. To sit there and do monotonous curls, and I mean, this is boring. Like, just let's do 8 sets of 3 and rip some shit off the ground. You know, so I need to get past that mindset. And again, that's my plans. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes it doesn't work. But I'm not, again, like for me, it's, you talk about bringing family and all that together. Like my daughter was with me at the New York Pro. My kids are with me at the gym. I train my best friends, Bryce and Seamus. Like that's fun for me. Like I bring it all together. So that's my social time. I don't have a man cave. I don't watch football. If I'm watching any sports, it's my kids. I'm watching my daughter play soccer. I'm watching my sons wrestle and play football. I don't have that time. My time is the gym. So you consider that my little man cave, which I'm like, dude, that's a beta thing. Think about it. Like your wife gets the whole house and you get a basement. Like, come on. Like I got a man house. Like I have a house. Like I'm gonna sit in the living room and I'm gonna enjoy it. We got a beautiful view. We got a fireplace. Why am I gonna go in the basement? Like that's a beta. That's such a beta cuck thing. Man cave. I got a man cave. I got a man cave. Like you let your wife have like 5,000 square feet and you're stuck with like 150 square feet in the corner with a Bears emblem and this. Come on. Like give me a break. And you're bragging about it? Yeah, my wife makes me watch football in the basement. And I drink my Bud Light.
Oh, God.
With Dylan Mulvaney on the can. Oh, dude, they're going to demonetize this.
God. All right, so back on track. So there's no Bud Light and there's no football in the basement.
No Bud Light.
And
no football.
You're 42.
I'm 42.
Right? So you're 42, and you started training seriously. Well, as serious as you could as a teenager, right?
13 is when I realized that I needed to train for football.
Yeah. So it's how now at 42, because what you're talking about adding mass now. Some of that could be mass that you've had in the past, putting back on again. So some of it is muscle memory, but some of it's kind of new mass as well. So how are you going to go about that differently now that you're 42 and have all the training years underneath you? So it's not just 42, then you started at 35. You see what I'm saying? It's a different landscape. It's 42 starting at 13.
Yeah, I think we know a lot more. Like my partner Bryce has done a great job. He's an expert on strength training, and he's done a great job helping program what we're doing. We do a lot of undulating periodization. So keeping my muscles, I hate to say it, guessing. You know, it's always different. We incorporate power, hypertrophy, strength, but really we're focused on the hypertrophy movements and focusing on those weak body parts. And with the food, my recovery is insane. Like I trained legs 2 days ago. I go now. Like I can go now. So I think that we know much more about training. When I trained at 13 years old, I was training with a guy named Coach Miles in my high school weight room. And we lifted like bro bodybuilder, power lifter, football players. Again, but unfortunately, this is a whole nother podcast, but high school training has not changed much. I mean, these high school coaches, man, and we deal with it all the time because we correct things. Yeah. And there's some who get it, most don't. But dude, we saw some programming the other day for a high school. One of the kids we coached, it was like in one day they had like bench press, power clean. He's like, it was like they just took like a CrossFit WOD format and put in every bodybuilding. I'm like, what the hell's going on? The reps made no sense. Nothing made sense. But basically, when you're 13 and you're going through puberty, 13 through 16, you can literally like do whatever and make gains. Yeah. Like I gained, between my sophomore and junior year, I gained 70 pounds in 2.5 months. The school made me take a drug test. And I didn't even know what steroids were. I was like, they're like, you got to take a drug test. I'm like, why? We think you're on steroids. I'm like, am I? Like, I didn't know what steroids. I thought you get it from, because that time, remember, like everybody was blaming their food. So I thought like I ate like tainted pork chops or something. And so I swear to God. So I went to my dad worked for the government, so we had good insurance. Mm-hmm. So my dad took me to the doctor. It was in Culver City, California, Fox Hills Medical Center. I'll never forget. And there was this young Asian doctor, like he was like 35, which is young for a doctor, right? All right, so what's wrong? I said, doctor, I think I'm on steroids. And he goes, huh? I'm like, yeah, I think I'm on steroids. He said, have you injected steroids? I'm like, people inject those? And basically I just had puberty. But I had because you wear chin straps, so I had dermatitis, so I had pimples. Like, I had all the signs of steroids. I gained a ton of weight. I had emotional issues because I had problems at home, so I had temper problems.
You were heavy too, right?
Didn't
you get up to 290?
I got up to 295.
Yeah.
I was fat. I was emotionally disturbed. I had a temper. I was a pretty bad kid. So, like, I understand how everybody thought I was on steroids. But, yeah, I mean, when you're a teenager, you get away with a lot of stuff. And with my genetics, I'm just being real. Like, I had to stop at 33 and fix all my form. I literally took a year, took my weights back because my body was falling apart. Because I was training Dorian style, but without Dorian form. I was like, okay, everything's hard and heavy. I'm making gains, and then everything fell apart. So I had to reteach myself. I got into athletic training. I got into movement. I started doing mini hurdles and mini bands and doing all these things, fixing my hips, fixing my back. My body feels better now than it did at 16. Like, I have no pain anywhere. Like, people are like, you're going to injure yourself with that movement. I'm like, you mean controlled? Okay. I mean, this is the healthiest I can possibly be for movement. But we know what we're doing now, and I think with periodization, being able to undulate, built-in deloads, built-in hyperloads, whatever you want to call them, that I'm able to elicit more from my body. And I rode genetics for a long time with the nutrition part. Being a guy who's really into nutrition, it just, again, you look at your little chart with the 3 circles. I was so focused on family and business that eating wasn't a priority. Yeah. But now it's like, just be prepared. Just take food with you. So it's a simple fix. Usually a lot of the complex problems in life require simple solutions.
Well, yeah, with 2 questions. With the undulating periodization, is it daily? I mean, elaborate a little bit more for me on that.
We undulate pretty much daily.
Okay.
So, I mean, you might have more of a power. Let's say so we'll usually do like a quad dominant, then an upper body dominant, like an anterior upper body dominant, then a lower body posterior, and then let's say a lower body anterior. Upper body anterior. Yeah. Posterior. My bad.
I got it.
We there's a lot of anterior posterior things mix me up. So what we'll do is maybe one will be power rep scheme, 3 to 5 reps. Then we'll have another one, which will be in the 8 to 12 range for hypertrophy. And even within workouts, we'll have a power movement for 1, and maybe we'll do more of a distraction set. So let's say we're doing quad day, we go really heavy on, let's say, belt squat. We'll do a distraction set with single leg Romanian deadlifts. All right. So we're able to undulate, and not only that, we're doing a lot of synergistic movements, get more volume in. So almost everything's a superset or a compound set. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to do, like yesterday, train shoulders, but we also threw in back because my shoulders need work, so my shoulders were priority. So we did heavy ass shoulder press on the hammer strength machine, and then we'd superset it with sets of 15 to 20 on the hammer low row. So certain things like that, making sure we get the blood in there, making sure we still get the stimulation, and working it in that manner. And I found that at least my body's really responding in the last 2 weeks. That could be a rebound effect. But again, we have 59 and a half weeks to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I've never had a plan. I've always been like, that show looks nice. Let's start eating less. So now I have a scheduled plan. I'm going to bulk a certain amount. I know what weight I have to get to. And it's going to be fun because it's actually been, it's really cool because my son's trying to gain weight, my 15-year-old. So we're kind of like, he's 100 pounds less than me basically. So we're trying to keep up with each other. So I'm like, I gain a pound. Let's say I'm 215. He's to be 115.
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty fun.
With the nutrition side, I get that, having had my own business for 25 years, was that a hard habit to break because you get busy, you just get in, I just call it locked work mode, blast mode, whatever it is. Next thing you know, I mean, for me, a lot of times, next thing you know, it's like, fuck, that's 5 hours gone.
Yep.
Right? And when I was still competing, that was a problem.
Horrible.
You know, because it's like, no, shit, now I need to eat way more.
Yeah.
Now, being a powerlifter, I had options. I could just eat shit, you know, to cover the base.
Yeah.
But was that hard for you to adjust to, or are you still trying to adjust to that?
It's actually, so what I found is the alarm clock. I was wearing a Whoop strap and I switched to an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
And I set an alarm. So like before here, I knew we were going to be on here talking for a couple hours. I'm like, okay, I ate a meal at 12. I'm going to have a bar that'll tie me over. I have a meal in the car. And again, like bulking's different. Like when I'm ahead of things because I know that for 8 weeks before the Chicago Pro, I'm not traveling. I've already told my board and I've told my companies, hey, I'm shutting it down in June and July of 2024. They're like, it's May of 2023. I'm like, I'm giving you ample notice. Like I'll still be taking the calls. If something big comes up, I'm there. But I'm not going to go doing a 300 store vitamin shop tour.
Yeah.
Because I'm insane. I bite off more than I can chew all the time. The problem is I won't say no. I won't call it off because I don't want to let people down. So like if I commit to something, I will literally put myself in the hospital, which I've done before. I've gone to the hospital twice for exhaustion because I want to fulfill that commitment. And that's just me. Because, you know, one thing, you're only as good as your word. And you're only as good, and the one thing you control in life is your work output. Like, and we have athletes. We tell them that all the time. You can't control who sits on a part. We have this wrestler at our legacy. His name's Noah. This kid, his work rate, dude, he makes us look like sissies. This kid will run himself he will purposely like exert himself so much. I've never seen anybody like it. And he's the definition of work rate. So the one thing you can control is how hard you work. The one thing you need is someone behind you, like a good wife or a good business partner, to say, hey, you need to shut it down a little bit. And my wife tries to tell me, but you know, we're married, I don't listen to her.
Well, it's what's going through my head as you're saying that is that it's rare in, how do I want to say this? It's rare in society, but it's not so rare with successful entrepreneurs.
Bingo.
Right? Successful entrepreneurs are going to have that mindset, you know, just
Bingo.
Go at all cost, you know, because that's kind of how you get paid. There's a lot of misconceptions and falsehoods about entrepreneurship that is online, and we'll set some of those straight here throughout this conversation, I'm sure. But it's not what everybody thinks it is. And at the same time, most successful entrepreneurs that I know have had experiences having to go to the hospital for things like you're talking about, have had experience for heart attacks, or probably anxiety attacks would probably be a better definition of what it really was, just because it's just in their nature. Right. I don't want to say it's some of it's probably learned nature too, but it's that drive that goes in there. And I think training, to be honest, helps that. But it can compound it too. It depends. That's why I'm so interested in this. I don't like the word balance because I don't think it exists.
It doesn't exist. It's not possible.
I like this coexistence that you're finding.
That's exactly.
You know, of these two, because
marry them. Yeah. Speaking of marriage, Dave, I believe the highest rate of divorce is among CEOs. I believe we have, even though we make cash, our marriages suck. And dude, my wife and I we've been through counseling. We've had marriage issues. 95% my fault. My fault. She's a good woman. You get so driven on that object, that focus, that you forget why you're working. Why do we work? We work to provide. but you're so busy building this dream that you turn your actual dream into a nightmare. And that's what happens with CEOs. And it's just something that you need to be cognizant of. And as we get older, we tend to have more perspective on what matters in life. And we tend to look at work as an ability to provide, as a vehicle to provide. Whereas when you're getting started, there's a lot of pressure on, especially when you build a company like we have. If we mess up, we could cost somebody their job and they can't pay their mortgage. So if we make one mistake, we're not the ones, it's not that we don't eat. How many people you got working here? How many people? You got a ton of people. Yeah, I got dozens of people under me. If I make one mistake, one miscalculation, and the company suffers, people don't eat. People have to find a job. People have to go on unemployment. People have to go on COBRA. I don't think people understand most CEOs, all you hear about is the bad ones. Most CEOs, we don't like firing people. We don't like letting people down. We want our employees to be happy. So the pressure that not only do you have to support your family, but that the existence of others rely on your decisions and your actions, that's what drives me to go to 300 stores. That's what drives me to go to these meetings. That's what drives me to work till midnight and then wake up at 3, is the fact that it's not just for me, it's for my family and other people's families. And I'm sure the same thing goes through your mind every day.
And some of the examples that you gave is, a lot of it takes, I think, time, being in business for yourself. But, the firing thing is, no, we don't like it, but at the same time, sometimes people won't do it because they're too afraid or they're too scared to do it. And when they don't do it, the rest of the staff suffers. So they're actually not taking care of the people who are taking care of them and their customers. They're actually doing them a disservice by trying to selfishly avoid some crucial conversation or scary conversation that they don't want to have. So that selfishness that they have ends up hurting everybody else. And it just happens to be in this word called firing, or another way to look at it would be releasing somebody to the market, so now they're available to go work for other people. And that takes a while. It takes a few, and it's still never easy. It's never easy, but that's how I wrap my head around it. Like, if this continues, then I'm kind of fucking over the people that are busting their ass every day to try to make this a better place.
Yes.
And so I'm a shitty person then. So either way, you're a shitty person.
Yes.
It doesn't really make any difference how that kind of plays out there. With the one thing that we were talking about beforehand, and you mentioned here a little bit, you've gone through an acquisition. And so now you're in this weird spot where, because of the acquisition, when was that? 2023?
It was July of 22.
Of 22.
Yeah,
so
June of 22.
Yeah, and there's
we're a year in.
Yeah, several year commitment, and that you need to be involved. So now you're working for somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? And you started, the first company, was it Scivation in 04, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then before that, when you were with Weeder and doing the publication stuff, was that as a contractor, or was that?
No, that was as a straight up employee.
A straight up employee. So you've basically been working for yourself since 04.
04 was the last time I had a boss.
Yeah, so now you kinda, it is. Now you have a boss.
Yes.
And
I have multiple bosses.
Yeah,
and I love it. I love them all. No, I'm not going to lie. I love these people.
Well, you can't say you hate them, right?
Hey man, I'll love anybody if they pay me enough. No, I'm just paying. Look, at the end of the day, they're really good people. These are people you'd invite to your house and hang out with. They're the nicest people, and there's a reason why we chose them as partners. I couldn't ask for better partners, and I'm not just saying that because they could be watching this.
Yeah.
They will. I'm saying that because we're blessed to have them, and there's a reason why we chose them as a partner, because we had multiple offers, and these were the ones. It was like the first time we spoke to them, and that's the thing, we went on gut. My partner Sean, Mike, and I were like, these are the ones. These are the ones. These are the ones. This is it. And it was the best decision we could have made.
This was for Ambrosia.
This is for Ambrosia,
right? Okay.
Correct.
All right. And when you I know the answer to this is no, but at what point along the lines of you having that brand did you start thinking of valuation?
Oh man, so the brand is weird because it started as Mike owned AMSO Alpha supplements.
Yeah.
Sean owned HPN. I owned MTS and a couple other things. And Mike and I started doing collaboration training videos on YouTube because we were both in the overtraining crowd. Like, fuck overtraining, you're a pussy. And so that was kind of the thing at the time. And CT was like, it's still your motherfucking set.
Yeah.
And Mike and CT were tight. I was tight with CT. So we did this collaboration in Dallas in I think it was 2014. And Sean's my best friend, and we all just started hanging out. And one day we're talking, we're like, dude, we all wanted to come out with a nootropic. We all wanted a brand. And Mike had a series on YouTube called Mental Jewels. It was crushing it. And Mike's like, dude, this would be, and I'm like, dude, I've been wanting to come out with this formula. I just want to put this with this. I don't know this pathway. Sean's like, I know this pathway. And we're like, what if we just did just one product together, just for fun? Don't even care if we make money. Let's make it as expensive cost as it needs to be. So we formulated Mental Jewels and we came out with Ambrosia. The name, basically Ambrosia is food of the gods. And the whole theory, people have accused it. There's a funny video on TikTok that's going viral about Kevin Gates, how he formulated Ritual PM. I'm glad Kevin Gates is formulating for us now. I got to show it to you. It's funny as hell. And so basically the whole idea was Illuminati. The Illuminati of fitness, which of course the Christian right really loves. Like, oh my God, it's an occult. I'm like, no, it's cool branding, dumbass. And so anyway, came out with Mental Jewels. And it was like, it started to really sell. Mike's series was going great on YouTube. Like, this is cool. We're selling it just through Tiger Fitness. It was just like a side project. And then we're like, we should incorporate it, whatever. And so then I'm like, guys, a lot of bodybuilders don't pay attention to their organ health. I don't want to do this under MTS. Sean, I want your input on it. Mike, I want your input on it. Can we come out with an organ health formula? So came out with Nectar, which is an organ health formula. And these are the shit that nobody buys. Like everybody thinks pre-workout and protein. Yeah. Nobody's like, heart health, nobody cares. My heart will explode, but I'm gonna look great in the coffin. So we came out with that. We made it taste amazing. We spent time on it, start selling. And then the game changer happened. That was Planta, our plant-based protein, where we were like, we can make great plant-based protein. At that time, Mike was vegan. So like, Mike needs a protein. Let's just make one for him. So we came out with banana maple French toast, and it just explodes. I'm talking like we couldn't keep up with demand. So at that point, we're like, oh shit, this is like 2017. We accidentally just came out with a big brand. And so next thing you know, we're the number one selling plant protein at the Vitamin Shop. And then in 2022, plant protein is extremely expensive to make. We needed a partner to help us take it to the next level. Because self-funding a project with that kind of growth curve, you know this. And then we're like, cool. So December, we started preparing the financials, and January we went to market. And then we were acquired majority in June of 2022. That was the official close date.
Did that, going through that whole process, make you look differently at MTS and Tiger Fitness?
So I learned a lot, and I have taken a lot of cues on management and on let's just say logistics and how to manage a company. So I learn from everybody. I'm going to come home today or tonight. I'm going to go home and I'm going to learn 20 things from what I saw here. I could read the worst written book ever and have one take home. Yeah. So what I learned about my other brands is that we've actually been doing it pretty damn right. And the one thing that I regret and is with a lot of what we did is I should have probably kept everything D2C or direct. When you start dealing with distribution and retailers, it opens up a whole realm of cash flow. When you could have a good direct business without any distribution, now we're already in, I'm not getting out of it, but if I was to do it all over again, I would do all D2C. That would be the only thing I'd change.
All right, so that's, Is that saying that in the Tiger Fitness model, you would only be selling the products that you're making?
No, so Tiger Fitness it's a retail store.
Like, but that's you're saying that's not,
like for Outright, for Planta. Yeah, that'd be the only thing that I'd be like, we just start out like we're just going to sell direct.
Yeah, because retail's it's a different. You know that it's a different world.
Yeah, Tiger Fitness is a store.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're competing and we're beating the shit out of brands that used to be the big dogs, the bodybuilding.coms.
Yeah.
You know, we've actually. We're still growing. We're having record weeks. And the key that we did to differentiate is one of the main things it was actually my partner Chad's idea is they were like over 1 million shipments over this and that. So we came up with the phrase, you're more than just a number here.
Yeah.
So we really focus on service. We really focus on personalization. We have the best customer service and shipping. So that's one thing Amazon, and we're actually faster than Amazon most of the time. We have a warehouse in Vegas and Ohio, so it's getting everyone 1 to 2 days for free shipping over $99. So our goal is to not only provide really awesome products that aren't available everywhere, because a lot of them aren't mass distributed. But we sell over 11,000 products. I mean, we have a lot of products. But the main point of differentiation is going to be our personalized service, our community. Because when you're building anything, I think the main thing you want to build is you want to build a community. Okay, you want to build an environment that's conducive to people belonging to something. And that's where I think a lot of brands go wrong, is they're just selling product. You need to have an emotional attachment. You need to know the brand you're buying from. I like to trust the people I'm buying from. I like to do business with good people. So we like people to know that, hey, we're a family-run business. Like, you're owned by two families, the Vortameshis and the Lobliners.
Yeah.
Both very hard to pronounce last names. So
Lobliners not that bad.
Yeah, Vortameshi is terrible.
If you listen to it, fine. Yeah, that would be well, the reason I asked is the margins, because the retail margins are shit compared to, I mean, it's... truth there for everybody. Retail margins are fucking awful. I can pretty much definitively say if I was to go back knowing how low retail margins are, I'm not too sure that would have been the route that I would have went.
Yes.
Right? Because when you're talking valuation and scale, that number has to be way higher than what people think it is, because what ends up being on the bottom line isn't nowhere close to what people think. Now, you can double or triple that margin if you're, wholesaler.
Yep.
But, there's pros and cons. The grass is always greener. Yeah.
When they look at buying your company, they don't overall obviously it plays a role in net sales, gross sales. They're looking at EBITDA.
Yeah.
Like your sale price is going to be based on a multiple of EBITDA. So if you have the same EBITDA with 100 million in sales versus 10 million in sales, 10 million, you have a lot less risk. You have a lot less overhead. $100 million company, you're floating 50 million in inventory at a time.
If not more.
Yeah, if not more. Whereas a $10 million company, you're floating 2 million, if not less, and you're turning it faster, you're getting prepaid. That's another thing. People don't understand cash flow. Like, most accounts pay net 60 to net 90. When you sell online, it's in your account the next day. Once that credit card clears, boom, it's in your bank. Whereas you have an account. And there's not one account, there's actually two. There's two. There's two accounts in our entire portfolio that actually hit their net 60. Net 60 usually turns into net 70-ish, net 90-ish. So if you can't float $1 million past due, you're not staying in business. I don't think people understand the cash flow issues that are incurred from net terms. Yes. And so there's a lot of things in business that they don't teach you in college. I went to college.
Yes.
They didn't teach me that. I'm like, yay, I made $1 million sale. It's like, how do I fill this?
They don't teach you shit.
Yeah, you're pretty much right.
I had a whole year of business classes. They don't teach you shit.
Yeah, well, you said it.
Yeah, I mean, they don't, and I was fortunate. Pros and cons always, but being in the equipment space very, very early on, it's no longer the case now. Things obviously have changed, but the norm was 12 to 16 weeks if you ordered a rack or something like that to be able to get there. But I, being the retailer, I would get paid that day. Unless it was a school, then we're dealing with POs and stuff like that. But now I'm floating that. like, okay, cool, I can float this until it ships, then I got to pay for it. That was the terms negotiated. Yeah. So now I'm able to take that, buy books, buy other stuff that I can actually sell that have higher margins, yes. Assuming that it worked that way. Because sometimes it doesn't.
No.
And then the bill comes and you can't pay the bill.
Yeah.
You know, but that's kind of the business thing where, you know, as things have changed over the last 2 or 3 decades, things shift everything's faster, which is awesome. Yes. Like, we all love it, but there's also a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are like, fuck, right? Because now, you know, what used to be something that I could float the cash for 12 to 16 weeks, I'm now maybe have a 7-day float, maybe, right? But that still doesn't deal with the money that you're putting out for products, say the MTS products that you're making. You got to pay for the shit, yes. Make the shit before you can even sell the shit.
Yeah, it's like there's such a lag, and then so the key is, I think, with everything is build your brand direct. If you want to go the B2B route, my suggestion is for people to build enough traction direct where you have enough cash flow to cover the nets.
I mean, that's still, what if it's Walmart? I mean, you're kind of in some of these places.
So you wonder why we looked into acquisition. So let's say Ambrosia is a huge player. Plant protein is the worst margins I've ever seen in my life. It makes whey protein, which sucks, seem okay. And also, like, the reason ours sell well is because it tastes so good. Want to know why others don't taste well? Because they don't put money into the flavor system. We're using monk fruit as a flavor. Monk fruit as a sweetener. Monk fruit is like fucking powdered gold. It's expensive as hell. Our flavor systems are costly. But we still have to keep competitive with the crappy tasting shit, like vegan and Owen and all that. So what do? Well, we have to operate on lower margins. So let's say we want to come out with an RTD, because the next step is a bar and an RTD. I know bars. Let's just say that there might be a Planta bar coming out. It's kind of what I do. I've kind of become the bar guy now, okay? RTD. You know how much the investment on RTD is going to be, a ready to drink? Bro, that's 7+ figures. That might be 8 figures. I don't got that kind of cash floating around in my pocket. Like, I understand, like, I don't got, like, that's some like Jeff Bezos money. So that's where, when your company gets to that level where you're looking at growing to that scale, the next logical step is on the goes.
Yeah,
So that's costly. Yeah. Like, we can afford a bar. We can do that. The RTD, we need help. And that's where our partners come into play, because they have the capital, they have everything. So when you look at who to partner with, you need to have someone who can release or acquire those funds to take it at next level. But if you're comfortable staying where you're at, I believe that most people, based on cash flow, get a company between 5 and 10 million and stay around. It's when you want to accelerate to 50 million, to 75 million, to 100 million. That's when you need partners. Because I don't know about you, and I do okay, but I don't have $75 million.
Well, even with that, it's those numbers that you're talking, when you get there, even if you want to extremely level up your staff.
Yes.
Right? So now, instead of the programmers that you've normally had, you want a good, or a CMO, say a really good fucking CMO.
That's an expensive cost.
Yeah, it is. And I've been looking for a year. I mean, so I'm talking like a really, really good one.
I might be available. No,
but anyhow, then you're like, fuck.
How much are you paying, Dave? Because I give all this shit up. I just want to be able to train here every day.
Yeah, but it's with that, you look at that though, right? You add that position, then say a CTO. You put out 3 or 4 of those positions, even at a company at the level that you're talking about, the 5 to 10 million. You just doubled their payroll.
Yes.
With 4 people.
You just spent $1 million on personnel.
And you need to hope they can generate back what they're actually being paid plus, more. And that right there, if like in a 5 million business, all 4 at one time don't work, can put them out of business.
100%.
And that's where that scaling, those partners that have deeper pockets per se. It's not really deep, better resources.
Yeah, I mean they can tap into funding. That's what they do, and they're really good at it. And it's and there's also again, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back to the beginning of the conversation. Why do we do this? To provide for our family. I want my kids to have generational wealth. So there comes a time when you have to cash in. You have to take that time. My father-in-law owned a company called 21st Century Security Systems in Culver City, California. ADT and Brinks were coming in. They offered to buy him out for, I believe it was like $4 million. He dies. We liquidated everything for $900K. So there comes a time when you have to say, this is as big as we can get it. Let's take what we can get and let's move on to the next project or work for said buyer. Because at the end of the day, what we're looking for is to provide for our family. That's why I wake up every morning. That's why I do everything I do. Because I want my kids and my wife and everybody to have what they need. I'm not talking about private jets. I'm talking about security. I'm talking about where, my daughter, she's being recruited by a bunch of soccer teams. There's no, again, like for college. She's done. She doesn't have the passion. After her high school season, she's already got a state championship ring. She's moving on. I had to accept whatever scholarship I can get to college because I was broke and it was my only way out of my situation. I want my kids to be able to follow their passions and their dreams and do epic things in life. And by removing that financial insecurity or that financial, just that unknown financial barrier, that opens them up to be able to do something they're really good at and they really love. My daughter, she wants to start competing in 2024. Why? Because it's all she knows. I mean, to me. So it's like, okay, cool. But she also started on a supplement brand, Lacuna Nutrition. It's for adolescent females. I mean, she's doing epic things, but she can afford to do that. We can give her those opportunities. I'm not going to give my kids shit. Except for opportunities.
How old are they?
So my daughter's 17, my son's 15, I got a 10-year-old son. So I got 3 kids.
Okay. I'm a big believer in adversity brings prosperity.
Facts.
Right? So it's weird when you're able to provide your kids with a better lifestyle than what you had.
Yes.
Because then you're trying to figure out, like, where's the adversity?
Sports.
Then and then you feel like the asshole if you're trying to create it, for them. Where is sports what you're using for that?
Oh, dude. So I had one rule in my house. Well, the main rule. There's a lot of rules. The rule was you have to play a combat sport and a team sport. Have you ever been pinned in front of your entire school? All of my kids have. Every single one. My daughter, when she was 13, she sparred an 18-year-old in boxing. Got knocked the fuck out. My daughter got screwed over in soccer by really bad coaches. I can say that out loud now. She's done. Mm-hmm. Really horrible coaches. Horrible people who should not be coaching kids. And guess what? She had to pick up and keep playing. She had to go back to the gym and keep training. She had to go to school. She has a 4.3 rated GPA. My son, first year, losing record. Got third in state in JV this year. My 10-year-old just won state. The first year, he had a losing record. What sports teach you to do, I can't make my kids poor. I've done too well to bring myself, I already did that. Mm-hmm. I broke that generational. I broke that familial, like my mom, I'm first generation American. My mom's family came here with like $5. Didn't know how to speak the language, but a little bit. Okay, I'm the one to break that cycle. And I broke the fuck out of that cycle. So I'm not going to make my kids poor. I'm not going to tell my daughter she can't buy Lulu pants. We live in Brentwood. She has a Jeep Cherokee, a Grand Cherokee. It's the shittiest car in the parking lot. Like Brentwood, Tennessee's got it like that. They're going to public school. They're not going to a private $35,000 a year school. So they're still like, they don't got it like that. But I can't make my kids poor. I'm not going to make them suffer. But what I will do is I will teach them work ethic. And there's something that sports do. And that's why I coach youth athletes. Because youth athletics, football is what got me out of my situation. Football is what kept me off the streets. What kept me it's what got me out of gangs. It's what got me out of all my situations. Sports are the great, it will teach your kids things that you cannot teach them, that you cannot inbred. Whether you make $1 million a year or $10 a year. You get out on that mat in wrestling, it's you versus that other guy. It's you versus that other girl. My daughter wrestled for her first time as a sophomore in high school, won regionals with her team, didn't even know how to wrestle. She didn't like it, so I'm out. But she got her ass kicked a lot. And she needed that. Rich kids need their ass kicked too. And I'm not going to beat my kids,
Yeah.
but sports do that. And look, they're going to run into adversity because, again, club sports, some of the worst human beings you'll ever meet because it's all about money. Good. It taught them a lesson. So I look at it as a net win. Sure, it costs a lot of money, and it kind of sucked at times, but the lessons learned about humans, about how to interact, about teamwork, about adversity, you can't teach that in school.
With the sport, where I get caught up in this is for my own background. There's individual sports and then training, which kind of to me fits one category.
Yes.
Like I wrestled, so there was wrestling, and that was just kind of like powerlifting. Like individual, same thing. Then there was like team sports, right? Team sports, I fucking hated team sports because I worked harder. They didn't do shit, pissed me off.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of the case with most strength athletes, bodybuilders, and so they fall in that realm.
I'm in the same realm.
But what I learned over the years, many years, is that there were things from the team sports I should have learned better. You know, the teamwork, that aspect, instead of just fuck all you guys, I'm going to do this. You know, and kind of, because when you have a business and in real life, you have to learn how to get along with other people, even people that you disagree, especially in today's world, for Christ's sake. Even people that may have difference of opinions, you can still get along with them. Sorry, guys, it's a fact.
It is.
You can still get along with them. And I think that was being taught. Whatever small little grasp of that I had was taught through football. It just took me many years later to realize, oh shit, you know, that kind of matters. And then integrating it in through that with your kids, what team sports? Because you said wrestling, so this is individual. And two questions, like for yourself, were they team sports that helped shape you, or was it the weight room and the individual sports?
So for me, it's a hybrid because I had a coach believe in me. So football was the vehicle, but I learned to work with people. I also had the same issue you had, where I would train 6 hours a day. Like I had no business being good at football.
Yeah.
I'm like 4 foot tall. All right. But I managed to get really fast, really strong. And I had no fear because I had a bad temper. So you're saying I can legally hit this guy and not go to jail. And it really kept me from getting in a lot of fights. I got in over 100 fights by the age of 15. Like, I was a bad kid. Like, I had a bad temper. You couldn't even tell now. Like, I'm the happiest guy. Like, you know, you look at my social media almost annoys me. It's like, shut up, bug God. You know, it's like, yeah, nobody wants to hear that shit. But it's really how I think. Because I never expected to live where I live. I never expected. And that was just I didn't even think about it. I just put my head down and I worked. But going back to sports, I think it came down to a coach, Coach Cornell Miles, and I had a training partner. His name was Leon Hatton. And when I was a sophomore going into junior year, I said, guys, I want to train with you. Because the school, we get done training, 1:30, the team would train. They trained to like 2:30. After that, it was our room. And I saw them training one day, and I realized that I'm not going to go to college if I don't train, if I don't play football. Because at that time, again, not political, there was affirmative action. If you're going to UC, if you're white or Asian, you're not getting in. They weren't letting any white or Asian kids in. I'm white. You know, they didn't give me a Jewish exemption, unfortunately. Even though we own Hollywood, you think they'd give me that. So anyway, so I'm like, I got to play football. So here I am, all 4 foot nothing of me. And I'm like, guys, I want to train with you. And they laughed at me. And then they said, okay, if you hang with us on chest day, because again, this wasn't football training like it should be. This is bros.
Yeah, Monday chest day.
Yeah, it was Monday. And I'm like, and I hung with them and I almost died because it was hard. And they're like, you're in. And I mean, you know, so Coach Miles he wasn't one who's like, you're going to be great. He didn't give speeches. He would just let me train with him. And he would just encourage me. He's like, no, you can put 2 plates on. No, you can put 3. And that belief in me gave me the belief in myself. And then I actually saw success because I went from being a nobody. I only started on JV because we only had 14 kids on the team. Okay, I went from a nobody, couldn't run, couldn't do anything, to a starter on varsity, on a very good program, on a state program, right? So and then I was getting noticed, and I'm like, wait a second. This hard work pays off. So I think it was a combination for me. It was a coach, a reverend, by the way, who believed in me, a training partner who was a year older than me, who mentored me, And it was a sport that gave me the opportunity to showcase what I did and allowed me to demonstrate that, okay, I can bang, and gave me an out. It gave me a way out of my situation because, you know, my childhood wasn't your normal, like, you know, leave it to beaver childhood. You know, my mom was an addict. You know, my father had health problems. My father was in the hospital all the time. I basically was home alone 90% of the time because my mom would be in rehab and my dad would be traveling for work, and then he had a stroke and he'd be in the hospital. So it was me. And I had to take care of everything. I was the only one there. So I look at my kids now, at their age, I can't imagine my son trying to take care of a house, trying to do dishes even, you know? And I was like, I had to learn. I had to do it. And then I'm in an area where I got into some bad stuff, and, you know, I don't want my kids to have any of that, you know, and it was hard. And I wouldn't trade it for anything because it made me who I am today. But there's some things I did, man. It's like, man, you look back at who you were in the past, like, that's almost a different life.
Isn't that the rub, though? I mean, it made you who you are, right? But
it sucked.
I know.
It was friggin' terrible. Like, I look back at it, you can tell I'm kind of there's some memories that come back that are just, they're hard. You know, some of the things I witnessed, some of the things I saw, no human being, and I don't have it, there's a lot of people watching this who have it 10 times harder. Everybody has their adversity, you know, but yeah, it's like, how do you, but I went through that so my kids won't have to. So now it's just, how do I, and I've explained it to them, and I think they get it. My kids are good kids, and they've made the right choices. And so when I look at my job, it's like, okay, my kids are pretty good. How can I mentor and help as many kids as possible? Because I want to be Coach Miles. Like, I've mentioned him so many times in my life.
Did you ever go back and thank him?
Oh, absolutely. I saw him at I forgot what I saw. I saw him at I went back for something. And yeah, absolutely did.
Was he aware?
He's aware.
He was aware that he made that change, that impact?
Coach Miles is a man of very few words.
Yeah.
He's basically, let me give you a background. Coach Miles played in the CFL, it's Canadian Football League, 6'3", I don't know he's old now. You know, I'm old now. At the time, he was probably a 280 pound, 6'3", just, you know, black guy, you know, school security guard, hence, and linebacker coach. And again, like, he understands. I think he knows how many lives he's touched, because the man's not going to get rich being a school security guard and coaching football. But this is a guy who, again, he used to get complaints about him all the time because he was tough on kids. But he was tough on kids. He was way tougher than I am on any kid I coach. Like, Coach Miles, this is a time when you could punch a kid in his pads.
Oh, yeah.
You know, bow, right in the chest.
Yeah.
Man, I got that wind knocked out of me a few times. But he did it because he cared. And he pushed us because he cared. And, you know, I was fortunate that, and I had another coach, Scott McCrillo, who helped me, you know, submit my tapes to colleges, because no one's looking at a 5'7" pulling guard, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I had a couple really, and it was all coaches. I can't name one teacher who helped me. I had teachers who tell me I'd never be anything, told me I'm stupid, told me that I don't have enough attention, that I'm this, I'm that. I've had business partners say the same to me. So I wake up every day, and Coach Miles never said that. He just said, shut the fuck up and lift. And I shut the fuck up and I lifted. And that was what drove me to be who I am today. It wasn't a teacher. It wasn't a parent. It was Coach Miles. It was Coach McCrillo. It was a coach.
Yeah, I share a very similar story where the same thing, wasn't a teacher. You know, I grew up in special ed classes, so I grew up being told I was worthless and believing I was worthless until a couple of coaches said certain things that changed the trajectory and, you know, powerlifting training as well. And so the reason I always ask, did you go back and tell them, is because when I did, you know, after 10 years, 15 years, whatever it was, they had no idea.
Really?
And then they also told me that it was like only one other person have ever told them.
Wow.
So I like to put that message out there to people that if a coach or a teacher, whoever it was, ever changed your life, let them know. because they probably don't, right? And they probably don't like most of their job either. Like, we're lucky. We're very lucky because we like more than 30% of what we do. I'm very careful on how I frame that.
About 30.
Right? Yeah,
You're
because,
right.
because
that's right.
you know, we do the other 70%, so we have the 30% we love.
I just had this conversation.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of people that work 100% just to be able to pay their bills, pay for their family because they love their family and that's what they do for their family. You know, fuck, even if you have 10% of what you love to do, or 1 day out of 5, you know, if that's a 5-day work week, you're way better than everybody else. If we got 30% and it just happens to be 30 hours on the back end of another 70, then, you know, I'm grateful and blessed for that, you know, and because so many don't. And you keep that in mind. And then when I was told that from them, it hurt in a way, because it's like, fuck, man, how many other people did you actually impact? But you may go to your grave thinking, man, I wish I was something other than a fucking wrestling coach. I wish I was something other than a teacher, because I'm sure they get just as much bullshit as we do. Like, most of communication that people receive isn't positive.
No, it's always the bad stuff.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to learn how to tune that down and to tune the other up.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm big on making sure those people are informed and told that. Let's take a bathroom break real quick, then we'll come back and jump right back.
That's cool.
All right. All right, guys, we're back. Where I'd want to go here is because we're still working back, right? So, but before, I don't know when I'm going to throw it in now. So before we work back, you mentioned earlier about, because I was talking about the pillars, and I'm probably forgetting pillars, but family, work, and training. You know, there's 3 main pillars that fall in there. And it's the way that I've always viewed the target market for elite FTS is those that would place training as one of their top 4 priorities.
Okay.
Right? Because now you put God in there, you put family in there, you put work in there.
Yeah.
It's high, right?
Yeah.
And then if it falls out of the top 4 or 5, I just figured, you know what, that's like fucking men's health, muscle and fitness, whatever.
Yeah.
They can get that information there. This is, you know, a different level there. And then when you get to the top 4, they're not stacked, they blend. Like, so it takes a period of time to learn how to blend them together. Where you mentioned something before, and I'm sure we share kind of the same stories here too as well, to where, how long have you been married?
Well, 21 years, so 21 years, and we've been together 26 years.
Okay, so very, very close. It's
High school sweetheart.
Yeah, I started dating Traci in 88. And then I married in like 91 or something like that.
Holy shit, you got me beat.
So a long time. And
97.
yes, and I remember the conversations when we first started dating. It's like, you know, here's the deal. Powerlifting is my thing, right? That's first. You know, you will always be a vast second.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
It's like right from the jump, because it's like if you're not down with this, see ya. You know, and and that works, right, for a while, and it actually worked for a long time. And but at least it's blending all those things where there comes a point where, and it wasn't just with the powerlifting, because business just became an extension of that.
Yeah.
So when the powerlifting began to dwindle down, the business didn't just fill its place. It took way more.
Of course.
Because now it's like, okay, I'm not making shit. It's been 6 years. You know, we're not going anywhere. Like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to actually put everything into it, like I would training, to put everything into it. And meanwhile, roles as you guys grow change over a period of time. And I'm sure I was told many, many times I was a dick and just didn't listen, right? Then there was a time that I was told where I had to listen, right? And then there's counseling and stuff like that, where, so I'm not talking about all the times you probably were told, but didn't really hear. What I'm talking about was, from your timeline with the business and so forth, when did you actually hear what she was saying to where you knew you may have to change? Both parties have to change, right? But you said it was 95% your fault. For me, it was 99% my fault, which means it's up to me to figure out how to change.
That's me being generous to myself. It was
Yeah,
probably more
yeah,
like
yeah,
99, yeah.
Yeah, but do you understand the question? Like, you were told way before, but you just didn't think it was important. And then it's like, fuck, this is important.
Yeah.
At what point in time was that on your timeline? Like, what business were you involved in? Where were you in your life?
Well, we renewed our vows in 2015 after, our marriage kind of fell apart. So the thing is, with being high school sweethearts, you know, my wife was with me at my lowest. Like, literally, I was a poor kid with fucking anger management issues, and she literally, and I didn't have abs. She wasn't with me because I was sexy. Like, I was fat as fuck.
290.
Yeah, I was fat, you know.
4'11", 290.
Yeah. So my wife loves me. Like, she loves me. She doesn't give a shit how I look. She doesn't give a shit how much money I have. And throughout all of our marriage difficulties, she made it clear she doesn't give a shit about any of the, you know, child support or the alimony. You know, she just wants to make it work. And with me, you know, you kind of get blinded by a lot of different things. A lot of your goals, a lot of your misconceived, elated kind of, and that's one of the reasons you'll see me much more humble, because you get on a level where you start realizing success. And it's almost like you're shitting diamonds, right? Like everything you do just seems to work. But you kind of forget why you're here. You forget about your marriage. You forget about everything. I'd say 2015, and it's crazy because I just talked about this with Bryce on the car ride here. 2015, when I had the prospect of not being with my kids I think it was when I had the prospect of not seeing my kids every night before bed. That's when it hit me. You know, that was when I was like, I need to pull my shit together. And because I actually, that's why I retired from bodybuilding the first time. You know, in 2013, I was crushing it. Won my NABA Pro card. I was moving up the ranks. I was like, all right, this is great. That's when everything fell apart. And in 2015, I went back to boxing and went to boxing because my wife's like, you're not good at this. Like, you're good at this, but you're not good at balancing it all. So I didn't train for bodybuilding for 5 years. I mean, I was literally working out twice a week with weights, doing just athletic stuff, going to the boxing gym, because boxing's, it's like, I look at it like practicing softball or baseball. Like, it's a sport. Bodybuilding is your body. Like, everything you do affects how it looks. And it didn't take over my life. It was just an added stressor. But in 2015, the prospect of losing, not money, I've been broke before, I don't care. You know, I literally, when we were having problems, I'm like, just take everything. Let's call it a wash. You take everything, I'll start from scratch, we'll figure it out. But my wife loves me so much, she literally said, I don't give a shit about that. I just want to make this work. And that's when we went to counseling, and once we were graduated from counseling, we renewed our vows in April of 2015. So that was, again, it was a bullshit wedding by a guy named Vinny the Hitman in Vegas. It was awesome because it only cost $500.
Yeah.
But the dinner cost more than the fucking ceremony. So we went to a really nice, it was really delicious. I forgot the place. But we went to Vegas, you know, renewed our vows. But I think that for me, it's, once you have kids, you know, you have to have a solid relationship, because you don't want your kids to grow up in a toxic environment. So not only did I have to fix my marriage so I could stay with my kids, but I had to fix my marriage so my kids didn't have a false perception of what a relationship should be. You can't have a loveless marriage and expect to have well-adjusted children. And I'm unapologetically a fan of the nuclear family, of the extended family, of conservative values. I don't care. Cancel me. I think that a child can be raised really well-adjusted with a single-parent household or any other kind of household. But I believe that statistics show that in a well-adjusted, dual-parent, nuclear family, traditional household, a child has a better chance. And again, like, my kids are everything to me. So once you have that prospect of not being with your children every day, it changes everything. So that's where we kind of had to, you know, it's hard as a guy who manages things to say, we need counseling. We need to go ask for help. We can't handle this ourselves. And so that's where we did it. And it was 2015. That was where my life changed. And 2016, 2017, every year has gotten better and better and better. And it's gotten more successful. I've learned, again, not balancing, but I've learned how to deal with everything that we have. So again, that was, it's really hard to admit that you're human and you're vulnerable and you have faults. And it's even harder to get help. So thankfully we got help. I mean, counseling was everything.
Do you worry about bringing bodybuilding back into the fold? Because that was part of the problem actually it's not, but the assumption would be that it's part of the problem. I mean, if you've talked it all through, you've realized that was not part of the problem, right? But it can be perceived as that. Yeah,
and my wife was very concerned.
Yeah.
And this New York Pro was, and actually when I came back in 2021, my wife's like, you were actually better during prep. So I just have to be cognizantly aware of what I do. Like, I have to be willing to, to look kind of downward on myself and be like, okay, am I being a little too snippy? Am I being, because you get hungry, like when you're hungry, you're hungry. And you have to be willing to look down and say, okay, I need to adjust this. I need to adjust that. I need to focus less on this. I need to make time for this. So again, for me, it doesn't really change. Like, luckily for me, I'm not one of those guys who does 2 hours of cardio a day. Cardio, I coach four classes a day, and my kids are in one of them. So it's good. So I don't need cardio. I'm literally moving all day long. So for me, it's one of those where it's not affecting anything negatively. But yeah, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I better not fuck this up, because I really enjoy this. And it actually, I think it enhanced our family. It definitely made me and my kids closer. It definitely enhanced our relationship, because my kids, I'll take them to the gym with us. Like my daughter, I was just showing your people earlier, like my daughter is in the gym training with me, Bryce, and Seamus. Like, that's cool. Mm-hmm. So it's opened up for me now that I know how to use it for good. It's like, if you have power, like if you're a superhero kind of movie guy like I am, you have this power, you can either be a villain or a good guy. I want to use this for good. And it's brought my kids and I closer together. And my wife, she's actually really proud of me now, because, I'm 42 and I'm doing it. And I think she actually realizes, like, if she's supportive, that it's just going to enhance our relationship.
For myself, the way that I explain it is, I was very good at compartmentalizing those blocks before they all blew up, right? Then when they all blew up, then I had to be very good at making one block that contained all of them together. Mm-hmm. And then when I did that, business got better, my relationship got better, I became a better father, I became a better husband, I became a better communicator with everybody, right? So all the things that I thought I was doing to be more successful independently was wrong. Mm-hmm. And fuck, there's 5 videos of me talking about why that was right. And then
I'm sure there are,
because you're under this weird mindset that, well, there's no way you can be able to do all these efficiently, at the same time.
Yeah.
And there is, if you get rid of all the white noise, all the bullshit, and then all the other crap that occupies your time that shouldn't, then you'd be surprised how much extra shit and time you have. It's like, holy shit. I didn't realize how much time I was wasting when I was still working 100-hour weeks. Yeah. Like, fuck. It's insane with that.
Remember what you talked about earlier about the funeral, about the wake, about the people on the outside? What I've learned is that I just block the fuck out of those people, and it doesn't get to me. I used to literally cry over fucking negative comments online. It used to get to me so bad, because I even to this day, I had someone the other day DM me that they wanted to fight me because someone said I'm on trend. And I said, no, I'm not on trend. And he's like, oh, I'm going to fucking kick your ass, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, well, I'm not hard to find. Like, here's my gym. Feel free to come by. I'll give you a tour. You know me. I'm like, I'll meet anybody. I'm not hiding. Like, this is the first time I brought someone with me anywhere. Like, I travel alone and I'm at the same place every day when I'm home. I'm like, if you want to beat me up, come on, like beat me up. I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to sue you because I'm not fighting anybody. I'm not fighting anybody. But it's one of those things where I've learned to get negativity out of my life. Like, Katie will be like, my wife, Katie, she'll be like, hey, did you see what this guy said about you? Just ignore it. Like, just ignore it. So we waste so much time on negativity, on things that don't matter, that it's time that could be spent building, that could be spent doing something positive. Instead, we're worried about this bullshit here and there. And yes, it's okay to ignore calls. It's okay to not take meetings if they don't benefit you. If I go to a lunch meeting with a guy I know I'm not going to buy shit from, or if I can take my kids to a baseball game, there's only 24 hours in a day, right? Like, and I need free time. I need time with my kids. So I'm not going to waste that time like, oh, I don't know why you won't just give me a meeting. It's like, dude, I understand. I've been on that end. I've been on that end where I've been hustling advertising for Weeder. I've been on that end where I'm driving around in a Toyota Corolla trying to get people to buy branched chain amino acids. When I first started a Toyota Corolla, I've been there. But I'm also like, if you can't sell me over the phone, bro, I don't need a free lunch. I can afford kava myself, okay? I can afford that shit. So you just have to be willing to say no, and you have to be willing to ignore anything that's negative. Just get negativity out of your life. If it's not positive, it's not going to benefit you. Just let it go.
When did the training center, Carbon, when did that come into the fold?
Man, that was a dream. So Bryce Beal is the most talented strength coach in the country. You're going to see him for years. He's young. He's like 30. Bryce owned a place called Legacy Performance. And throughout my years running businesses, every year I do probably 3 to 4 weeks of education, whether it's going to a seminar, whether it's getting Exos, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's kettlebells. So I'm going there, I'm learning from all these coaches, I'm learning all these things, I'm mentoring, getting certification after certification. And my goal is long-term. I want to get out of this industry. I'm not saying it's within 10, 20 years, 5 years, I don't know. My goal is to coach kids. I truly, in my heart of hearts, feel that God put me on this earth to coach. God put me on this earth to make kids greater. God put me on this earth to support people's goals. I truly believe that, but I believe God gave me a vehicle to get there, to get the financial means to do it, and that's make me really good at creating things and really good at selling things. That's my belief. I could be wrong. It could be high, could be the THC. It's legal here now, isn't it?
Medically.
Oh, cool. Because I have a lot of medicinal issues. So long story short, we had an opportunity. A great guy, his name is Brent Laffey, phenomenal individual. He owned a company called Armada, which is a huge manufacturing facility. And Brent comes to me, hey, we're going to build this phenomenal facility. We're going to make Carbon Performance. We want to put a youth training facility. I know you do that. Because before that, I actually coached hundreds of kids I started the strength program at Campton United Soccer Club in Illinois. My stuff's still on their website. Hopefully they still use my stuff. And I also coached high school wrestling, their strength program. So I've coached hundreds of kids. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is what I spent all this time doing. And I've kind of used my kids as guinea pigs, and it works, you know? Mm-hmm. And so Bryce owned a place called Legacy Performance in St. Charles, Illinois. And as soon as Brent came to me, I'm like, dude, I want to do this, but I can't do this full time. So I'm like, I want to bring out the best coach in the country, the guy I trust most, the guy I would trust to train my kids. So I called Bryce. Again, he owns a successful facility in St. Charles, Illinois. He has 35 kids D1 right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Bryce, I want you, what would you think about moving to Tennessee? Here's my idea. He goes, when? That's it. And the rest is history. So we've been there doing it for a year at an old CrossFit facility. Mm-hmm. We got our new facility, came up literally 2 weeks ago was our first day. And we're already packing classes. Like we got kids, just the results we're getting and we're seeing in kids. We're cutting off 0.2 off a 40-yard dash is going from 4.7 to 4.5. I mean, we're making kids, we're doing some great things and we're building confidence. We have one girl, I love her to death. And she came in and she just had a bad posture, had back pain, just wanted to do something athletic. And her mom brought her in. She's like, hey, what can you do? So she went from wearing all black, kind of like whatever, to now she's wearing pink, which is if you could tell the mental cue of that, like she's not hiding. And she went from and then we're like, hey, why don't you do a powerlifting meet? Just do it. Let's do it. So we're getting her ready. And then she's like, you know what? I'm going to go out for the volleyball team. So we got an introverted kid who's literally come out of her shell. Training is everything. Like, I don't think people understand for me what this means. This is life. There's a reason I own 3 of them because this changes lives. Bradley Martin, you see what he did during, can I say the C word? The pandemic?
Yeah.
Bradley Martin refused to close down because he said it would affect people's mental health too much. He's right. Without the gym, I tried it. I tried training at home. I couldn't do it. I need the gym. I need the atmosphere. I need the positivity. And these kids need it too. And they also need us to correct the crap their high school coaches do.
Oh, yeah.
We're in there. We're like auto repair shops. We're getting people who just grind it every time they go off the red light. So, I mean, we're injury prevention, speed, strength, power, agility, about 25% strength. And we use a lot of your stuff. We use a lot of conjugate. We use a lot of undulate. We use a lot of things. Like, we'll combine different methodology. I like a lot of exos for movement, for injury prevention. So, Bryce is a programming genius. So again, we handle everything from, like the girl I was telling you about, I'm not going to blast names out there, to a kid who just went to Memphis on a football scholarship. And his one thing is, Coach, I wish I had more time here.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we're always here in the summer. We're always here when you're home. So for me, it's what I was put on earth to do. And again, with Bryce, like, we will be, for youth training, we will be the model. That's my goal.
When did Tiger Fitness come to be?
Oh, that's a question that has a good answer.
Right, because that's the longest sustained out of all of them, right? So how long has it been in business, first off?
So it's been in business. So it was around before me. So 2001, Chad Vortameshi, he started out of his parents' attic. And, at that time, you're selling fat burners, pro hormones, which was very lucrative.
Androstenedione.
Yeah, good stuff. And so long story short, in 2011, I sold Scivation. So I had a 2-year non-compete. And the only caveat is I could sell D2C. I could sell direct to consumer. That's what Tiger Fitness is. So I had a concept, and I presented it not just to one, but Chad was like a good friend of mine, so much of a friend that I almost didn't want to go into business with him. And so I'm like, you know what? I had this concept, and you look at Kirkland and Costco, look at Members Mark, and you look at Sam's Club, you look at Equate and Walmart, autonomous brands within a retail store. So I had 2 years to build a brand direct to consumer. After 2 years, we could hit the market hard. And we already have that groundswell built up. We already built up the company. At that time, Tiger Fitness was operating out of a retail store in Cincinnati in the Oakley area called Queen City Nutrition. And we were literally shipping out of the back. We had a basement that was like 4 feet tall. And so I'm like, I remember I drove down. Chad and I were friends from when I was selling him from Scivation. We became really close friends. We'd go to football games together. We'd hang out together. Our families would go together. So I remember I'm like, Chad, I have an idea. Can I come down? So I'm like, Chad, here's the idea. So we had nowhere to meet because the store didn't have enough space. There's a mega church across the street. And we're like, we met at the church. I'm like, Chad, so I'm thinking we start this brand, we do this, that, third. I'm like, I already have it formulated. Here's our whey proteins. We start out with just whey, MTS whey, chocolate and vanilla. And I remember sitting there. He's like, yeah, let's do it. Okay. Sent over to my attorney. We had an agreement signed within 24 hours. The meeting was August 5th. September 30th, we had whey on the market. And from there, Tiger Fitness grew. We blew up, sold out of the first runs within 10 days. Ended up moving to a new warehouse in Mason, Ohio. Grew out of that. Now we're in our current location that we own in Loveland, Ohio. Now we have a warehouse in Loveland and a warehouse in Vegas. So Tiger Fitness was around before me. But Tiger Fitness as we know it now, again, here's what I love about Chad, is he's really good at what I suck at, and I'm good at what he sucks at. And we both know what we suck at, and there's no ego. We just work. And we don't argue. It's like, if Chad has an idea, I'm like, awesome. If he has an idea, I'm like, awesome. Because he's really good at what he does. The guys, again, and you talk about trustworthiness, you talk about being a good man. Here's a man with 4 kids. He's a family man. Again, Tiger Fitness, what I tell people is like, why should I buy from you instead of Amazon? I said, well, a couple reasons. One is we probably have better prices because people mark it up on Amazon because they take their FBA fees. 2 is because you're going to get it in the same amount of time, usually 1 to 2 days, free shipping of $99. 3 is we're an American-owned company owned by 2 companies based in Loveland, Ohio. So if that's something, and we have cool brands that maybe Amazon won't have. So I'm always like, I like supporting small business. I just went the other day to Campiones, which is a local a local, they make Italian. Oh my, so good, Chicago. They're in Gallatin, Tennessee, and the guy contacted me. He's like, "Hey man, after you win your show, it's like, come in, we'll give you a free sandwich." I'm like, "I'll do you one better. I'm gonna come in there, everybody in the restaurant, I'm buying lunch, and I'm gonna put you on all my social media." So I'm not anti-mega corporation. I sell to them every day. But if I can do something to help small family-owned business, I will. Tiger Fitness is the closest thing to a family-owned business for internet retail of supplements you're probably going to find. So I'm like, hey, if that's your thing, that's great. But we will compete with anybody on service. But yeah, Tiger Fitness, that's my baby because I get to talk to consumers every day. Now we have Bryce working on the app. Bryce is communicating and programming for hundreds of people on the app every day, and it's free. We have the free app. We have our gym's free, so we don't charge membership to people who come to our gym in Loveland. It's just, for me, it's just, Tiger Fitness is really that's my baby. I love it because when I'm selling a bar, 99% of the people who buy that bar don't know shit about me. They just know the bar is good.
Yeah.
Tiger Fitness is a community. It's culture. We've built culture, and we've built a family. Our nucleus of consumers. It's a really large, multi-million-dollar extended family. That's how I look at it.
Have you run into the perception of being bigger than what it is, right? Because say you got Tiger Fitness and then other online brands, I don't want to mention names, but some of those this one of the things that I've run into, so I'll put this out there, is people will look at, Elite FTS and then they'll compare it to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And you understand that X does more sales in a day than we do in a whole year.
Yeah.
But because our branding is so good,
so good.
that perception puts it in this weird fucking world where it's like, no, we are a family business. My son's working behind the counter. My sister-in-law is our warehouse manager.
Yeah.
My wife's the COO. I have employees that have been here for a decade. This is a family-run thing, and you're comparing it to somebody that does more sales in a fucking week or a day.
10 investors and
you want to use that. You see what I'm saying? It's a strong promotional tool to be able to put out there, to be able to say that, but it's been so diluted because everybody is a fucking family business. So in culture sells, I agree 100%. But we're in a world where, and some of it was probably my mistake, and maybe you did the same thing as well, as we're coming up, you're trying to make the brand look bigger because you don't want people to know you're selling from a fucking 400 square foot shack, in the middle of downtown London, Ohio at the time, right? Because who's going to do that, especially 20 years ago. And then you're in this weird place now to where that branding is strong. And I think a lot of people would want to support that, but it's hard to shine through. Have you found that to be?
It's hit or miss. Some people think we're we're Amazon. But people who meet me, what are you, like a trainer? So we kind of get a little of each. People who aren't in the industry or just randos online, they'll be like, oh, well, that's just a small whatever. We're decent size, right? Mm-hmm. I think we had a good mix. I think some people underestimate. Some people, think we're corporate America and we wear suits. Mm-hmm. So it's a completely. I think that one thing that's really helped us is Lacey is phenomenal at what she does with our social media and kind of, getting the message across that we're, and that's why we had that graphic made 2 weeks ago. I was like, I want to do just a picture of our building that says family owned. I want to do that where it's like, hey, we are family owned based in Loveland, Ohio. And things like that. So if people are finding us on social media or YouTube and just being out there and like you do, become accessible to your customers. I probably have 100 DMs. I'll reply to them all by the end of the day. And they're usually really weird. Now, they're usually really nice. I'll answer most stupid questions. But, at the end of the day, I think it's good and bad. Nobody wants to buy from a company who they don't think can have quality control. So I'm dealing with consumable goods. So you're going up against Glanbia, who has quality control out the yin yang, right? They're a multi-billion-dollar firm. So if I'm perceived at couple 100 million more than I am, then that's actually a good thing in that scenario. But if I'm going for the, you know, the appeal that, hey, buy small, and people think we're a $1 billion brand, that's not good. But again, when I'm local, when I'm talking to my neighbors, which is weird because it costs a lot to live in my neighborhood, they think that I'm literally a trainer. That's all I do. And I train people. I do. I still have clients. I love training people. Like, I don't think people understand. Like, I love training people. I love training kids, and I love what I do. I love everything about, I hate spreadsheets and I hate meetings, but I love everything else I do. And they're all a part of, I look at it like paying my dues. It's kind of like warm-ups, right? Like, warm-ups are like paying your dues so you could actually get to the fun stuff and not injure yourself. That's what I look at board meetings and stuff as, and spreadsheets. This is paying my dues so I can do the fun stuff. And yeah, it gets tiring driving around hitting 20 stores a day. But again, that's, for me, I love it because it's a challenge. I'm like, for me, it's like, oh, this kind of sucks. I'm in the car, and then I'm answering emails between like piss stops. And then you're like, wait a second, like, I think I get 21 stores today. So then the competitive edge comes in, where it's, I think they call in the military embracing the suck, or like, you know, it's like, fuck it, let's do it, let's go. So I like the challenge, where sometimes I can overcome the challenge by just thinking of, overcome the adversity or the shittiness of a situation just by like, oh, I could fucking do this. I could do this. So it becomes like a challenge to me. So yeah, I mean, with us, Tiger Fitness is just, I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. We have a great staff. We have great retention. Our average shipping people have been there for years, which, you know, the turnover on that is super high. We have a free gym. We have healthcare, 401k match, you know, and we have a batting cage. I mean, we do our best to make our employees feel like it's a fun place to be. Build that. I'm all about culture, and that's one of the conversations I have with coaches all the time. Like, we have teams in our area in Tennessee who have no business winning, and they win state. It's not because they have better athletes. It's not because their coaches are better. It's because their coaches are better at building culture. Culture is everything, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of culture. I'm a culture fanatic.
They need to I am as well, but sometimes I think that becomes misdefined as well.
I agree.
Like, people think that it's like in an office, it's going to be like a football team, like, oh, break, you know, or like, you know, it's like, no, it doesn't work that way, you know. But if they all really know what the end result is, you know, where the holidays is kind of an easy sell, you know, with all the staff, it's because if they're buying from us, then it's a niche market, you know, it's strength and conditioning. Then it's even kind of niched in the strength and conditioning because we're only interested in those that put it as their top 4 priority. But it's probably the only gift that they want. You know what I'm saying? So it's their favorite gift that's going to be under the tree that they get to pack, you know, that they get to process. And then, so that is, you got to find the story to be able to tell that everybody can relate to, because not everybody's going to train. You know, I'm sure not everybody at Tiger Fitness is all 1,000% into fitness, but they are into whatever the mission is.
Bingo. It's about again, it's like, we have the gym. Not everybody trains, but people like to be happy. You know, people like to be treated with respect. People like to be treated with dignity. People like to be told thank you. You know, I don't do that enough, and I do it a lot. I don't think the only person I think, because I see him every day, is Bryce. Because he's freaking awesome. I'm like, thank you. Like, this is awesome. Like, good. You know, and it's because it should be said, but I think a lot of management issues can be solved with a simple good job, or a simple thank you, or a simple we appreciate you being here. But I think that a lot of managers just lack that ability to be vulnerable. Because saying I appreciate you, that's kind of putting yourself in kind of a vulnerable position. It's like, hey, I need you. Hey, I want you here. That's vulnerable. And a lot of managers are too weak to put themselves in that position. The people who are the best at expressing emotion are usually the biggest, toughest guys. Like, I'm not going to name names, but there's like some guys I competed against who literally were just very like open about their thankfulness about certain things, about, hey, you know, thank you for this, thank you for that. And it's like, these are big alpha dudes, but yet, you know, we look at emotion as almost a female thing, right? We look at emotion as a feminine trait. Whereas I've found the people who are most successful at showing emotion are usually the most masculine people you'll meet.
And they'll be the most authentic about showing it too, because I think a lot of people do, but it's not authentic.
It's fake.
And you can just, I mean, it's so fucking obvious. That's a pet peeve of mine, by the way, because you can see it. It's like, oh God. But when it's authentic, it's the issue that I've always run into personally, and it's a work in progress, is you become so hyper focused on what you're doing. It's like you're going boom, 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 boom. It's like, fuck, I didn't even talk to anybody today. And it's and it happens, and it's like, shit, okay, do better. And next time do better. And I think it's the type A personality that just kind of runs and runs and runs with that. With the Tiger Fitness and going back with that, one of the things I have here in my notes is the note is social media, but what I want to talk about isn't what your thoughts on social media and all this bullshit that everybody talks about now. What I want to talk about is because when I was bringing the company up in 2000s, right along there, I mean, almost the same time period. I mean, the websites are fucking Microsoft front page, it's HTML, it's all this kind of bullshit. And there's the articles. And for me, YouTube back then was, oh my God, this is great. I can embed the video and put it in the article and not have to pay for the hosting of the video, which was killing me. Any of the hosting of a video or audio was just out of fucking control. And so I'm like, fuck all that. So I would only go on there to upload the video, grab the embed file, throw it in the article, go. Never paid attention. You were on it, using it differently, right? And so to summarize what I've seen as an outsider looking in, you embraced it from the beginning, you're building a following from there. So part of the question is, did it help Tiger Fitness? And then throughout the years, you've been a voice on there as well, as far as being a reactionary voice, and I call it, oh my God, the YouTube now, we have reaction videos to reaction videos to reaction videos to reaction videos to what this guy reacted about. It's become so, but then like a month ago, you said, I'm done with that. From the reaction type things. That's just one style of video, right? So that's a separate question. So the question is, do you think that the way you approached it, because there's a long duration here. We're not talking like, somebody that did it for 3 months. This is like
11, 12 years.
Yeah, like since it started
2011.
Almost.
So when I started, it was just the Hodge twins, Louis, Marco, Scooby, and me.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going way back. So it's obviously it helped the brand. There's no doubt about that. But throughout the years, how has the role that you've had, because you can get caught up, like people were, when I threw on our Discord, I threw questions out and they're like, ask him about this and this and this. And it was always like some beef with somebody from like 10 years ago. I don't even know who the fuck the person they were talking about.
I probably don't remember it either, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know the people that you're asking me about. I didn't even go on YouTube.
Yeah.
It was just a hub for the fucking thing. And so it's what aspects, because it's changed and how you've utilized it has changed over a period of time. What aspects do you think help the brand? Because there's multiple brands too.
Yeah.
And because there's personal branding and then there's not corporate company branding. So it's kind of a broad asked question.
So I think YouTube's evolved. I mean, when it started, it started and I just literally did review videos. So I was just doing like my first video. So Chad came to me, and Chad's a computer guy. He goes, hey, you need to get on YouTube. I'm like, why? YouTube's dumb. Like, I don't want to be on video. He's like, just dude, it's like it's owned by Google. Like, go on YouTube. I'm like, what do I do? I didn't like go out like, I'm going to be a YouTuber. I'm like, no, I just want to sell product. He's like, dude, just like do a review on Oxy Elite Pro. I'm like, what do I say about it? He's like, you know what's in it, right? He's like, just talk about it. Okay, so I talked about the ingredients. Next thing you know, like we sell out. And there's like, and it was already selling, but I'm talking like it blew up, and like, dude, the video just went for that time viral-ish. Like the only viral video at that time was Chocolate Rain. Chocolate Rain. Remember that? Tavon Day.
I don't even remember
that. Oh God,
to show you how involved I was.
Chocolate Rain, man. Everybody knows the Chocolate Rain. So, So then it was like, then I was like, compete. It was 2011, so I was starting to compete, and people were like, hey man, I saw you on Facebook. Like, you should do like training videos. I'm like, why? So I'm like, how do I do that? Like, just have your wife. So we bought, like, we didn't have cell phones with cameras back then.
Yeah.
If we did, it was a flip phone.
Yeah.
So my wife, we bought this like $50 camera from Best Buy, and it was literally like a potato. Like, if you look at the old videos, it was like the resolution was like 120p. It was like, so we started doing training videos. It starts growing, and then people are like, hey man, you should do day in a life. Okay. And by that time, it was like 2014, 2015. That's when Chris Jones came on the scene, Matt Ogus, Chris Lovato, the Hodge twins. Hodge twins and I started collaborating. I'd go up to Virginia. We'd do eating challenge videos. We'd do all these. We're all growing off each other. And then CT came on the scene, Mike Rashid. And what we would do back in the day, the beefs, other than like the one guy, Jason Blaha, everybody hated him because he used to just make shit up and libel people. Well, he was speaking whatever his opinion was. He'd say some really vile stuff. And so, but other than that, all the beef was fun. So like Chris Lovato, who is, Legends of Aesthetics or whatever, LOA. So Chris and Matt, and then you had Chris Jones, and you had me, and you had Jerry Ward and all those guys. So we used to literally like plan beef. Like behind the scenes, it was like, and then Hodge twins had the overtraining versus Snap City with CT. So the beefs back before like 2018, 2019, we were literally texting each other like, bro, I'm going to call you out on this. Oh, that's funny. So we were playing everybody. So there was really no beefs. So if like someone said something about training that I disagreed with, I'd be like, hey bro, do you mind if I fucking go off at you a little bit on this? It's like, yeah, man, I'll go off at you. And then I'll call your dog ugly, whatever. And so it was really just a bunch of bros fucking having fun.
Yeah.
Like all of these guys are still friends. I still talk to Matt. I still talk to Chris. And back in the day, we used to talk shit about each other left and right. And so Chris and Matt are friends. Like, we're all still friends. It's really fun. It became like a little like, now we're old. So now we're like 40 something. Like, hey, remember that time?
Yeah.
So, you know, that was all fun and games. So YouTube evolved in that, you know, for me, I have a ton of subscribers, but my views aren't very high because here's what happened. People still have their YouTube account, but they stop watching that shit because they're old. They're not watching YouTube Fitness. They have families now. They have careers. So now I'm building from scratch. So for me, I don't put out videos for views. I don't like look at the algorithm and like, hey, everybody's talking about Mike O'Hearn being natty again because no one's ever done that video. You know, basically, so like Bryce and I will be on and we have a list of 20 topics and we go in and we talk about what we're passionate about. So for me, it's more about education. Don't care about views. I don't care about anything. It's just a way for me to get my opinion out that I feel is information that is correct in my opinion. So we'll do a video on sport-specific training and how it's bullshit. We'll do a video on undulation. We'll do a video on conjugate. We'll do a video on west side. We'll do a video on all this stuff, right? But it's evolved in that at the beginning, yeah, I was doing more like, chasing views. And then it's like, that's really not quality viewership. That's just clickbaity bullshit. Nobody really cares, and it doesn't look good. So as I've matured and gotten older, I stopped cursing on YouTube a year ago. Except I'll let an occasional. I'm going to let an occasional fuck slip.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, I try to keep it very minimal. And, you know, it's more educational. And right now, I'm doing my Return to the Machine, the whole 60-week prep thing. I think that's pretty catchy. And the thing is, a lot of people seem to want to see it. So if people are like, dude, I don't want to see this, but a lot of people do, I'll be like, well, don't watch it. Like, these people want to see it. So maybe, again, like I posted something today, like, if I can inspire 1 to 2 people to be better, that's fine. It doesn't take me that long to pop up the phone and, you know, get on the camera. But is it... You know, honestly, where my values led mostly is like when we create content for, let's say, Ambrosia and we run ads, that's where the money's made. Yeah. So that's like, if I'm going to pick anything I'm going to do, it's not going to be organic YouTube videos. It's going to be a production, a well-produced video. We just did a few of them. I go to California. I do it in Ohio. But we literally have a full production and video team. We produce commercials. And my commercials do draw really, really well because I can explain the product and I look like someone who uses them. And I'm the creator, so it kind of works. Yeah. So I look at myself as a very cheap athlete. You
Yes.
know? So, I mean, YouTube videos, did YouTube help? Absolutely. Could I go off YouTube now and stop posting any videos and still be fine? Yeah, I'm good. I mean, at the end of the day, we have an email list. Like, your list is everything.
It is everything.
It is everything. So YouTube helps build the list. So my suggestion to people is focus less on the views and more on the list.
100%. You know, I'll double down on that one because it's, like I said, the YouTube was just kind of like a hosting thing. It was only after 2021 when we started to actually monetize YouTube. And, but during there was a point during 2020 I just got frustrated and said, fuck all social media. And I stopped all of it, you know, deleted all my Instagram posts, a lot of shit, just said, fuck it. And it had no impact on our sales.
No, it's not going to.
Because of our mailing list, right? I got 20 years of building a mailing list, right? Yep. But then it reframed how I looked at content because, you know, for all these years, it's like, okay, it's free content that we're being able to put out there, but it's not free to produce. You know that.
It costs of time.
You know, it's fuck yes, it does. You got articles on Tiger Fitness, so there's editing, there's, you know, somebody's got to format the shit, put it in WordPress, all this
Even
other kind of stuff.
Even if it's $1 an article, I have 10,000 articles on there.
Exactly. Yes.
Do the math.
So now I got to this weird point where I'm like, now wait a minute, we're spending what on content? And I just stopped doing all of it and it didn't hurt our sales at all. Maybe I should use that money and absorb shipping cost. And then that, you know, so then it became this thing of, okay, if we're going to build content, it should at least be self-supportive. Mm-hmm. You know, so turn the fucking monetization on. You know, let's find sponsors for the podcast. Let's find a way that it can be self-supportive. Because there was the other thing too. I started all this for content,
yes.
You know, just to be able to help people with content. Then I got in this weird area, like, wait a minute, if our sales actually stop, we have no free content.
Yes.
So how do I make sure that can always be, you know, self-supportive? And so then it became, now I started looking at content in the view that people have for a decade. Like, how do you do this in such a way that there is an ROI instead of, just fuck it. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. Like, what's trackable? How do you know? What is the return? It's hard to figure that out. I mean, that's a whole different podcast right there. Yeah. You know, because how do you actually determine how much revenue was generated from an article you put on your site, right? Because
there are some mechanisms to see the traffic. I mean, there's good ways to measure those metrics, and I won't get into that. Mm-hmm. It's far beyond the knowledge realm we can get into here. Yeah. But what I look at it as is I can only meet so many people in person. And I want people to know who they're buying from. I think, you know, I remember when I was a kid and there was that guy who I think was Men's Warehouse or the Hair Club or some shit. I liked it so much, I bought the company. You know, I was like, that's, dude, I would buy from that. I don't need that shit, but I want to, if I'm going to buy one, I'm buying from that guy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the thing people don't understand who haven't like traveled with me or lived with me, I take all our shit. I love the supplements I create. You know, I just created a heart health supplement that I'm more excited about it coming out than anybody. You know, when we have a new product come out and I have I'm blowing through the initial sample run, I'm like, God, I hope it comes out because I'm gonna be out in like a week. Mm-hmm. You know, I smoke my own shit. You know, I love what I do. I love supplements. I think it's benefited my life. There's no reason why I should feel better at 42 than I did at 22. And there's a lot of things involved. You know, I'm going to go there. You know, I am on TRT. So, I mean, because people are going to, he's on drugs. Okay, fine. Okay, good. We'll go there. But at the end of the day, a lot of people do. My neighbors, so I live in Brentwood. So most of the men in my fucking neighborhood are on TRT. A majority. Mm-hmm. And they're not jacked. They don't even lift. TRT is a way to get you back to where you were. So let's just get that out of the way. So at the end of the day, supplements don't, obviously being active, doing cardio every day. Like I did my cardio this morning, making sure that you get your nutrients, get your diet right, getting your sunlight, getting all that stuff. That all plays a role. But I truly believe in what I do. So when people say supplements aren't necessary, well, a lot of things are necessary, right? Protein's not necessary. You get amino acids from rice. You can survive, but are you truly optimal? I'm not interested in being normal. Being normal is my worst fear. Like, it's okay to be average. No, it's not. Being average would suck. I've seen average. They can't play with their kids. They can't run. They can't lift heavy shit. They don't have abs. I like having abs. That's not normal. That's not average. Fuck average. Hate average. I don't like it. I don't want to be average. I don't want to make average money. I don't want to be normal. So yeah, supplements, are they necessary to survive, to do well? No. But I will say that if anything the pandemic taught us is that vitamins work. Remember there was that big thing in like 2019 when people were like, oh, multivitamins are a scam. And then we find out that there's certain nutrients, zinc,
D,
vitamin D, quercetin, that these are actually, prophylactics that help prevent viral replication, that help you not die from things. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, and they're still like, well, you don't need that. I'm like, so you like dying? I'm like, what? It literally, that was proof. Then, and even like India was giving out like supplements to people. India, the country of India, was handing these things out. Our entire country. So I'm like, I believe in my mission. I believe in what I do. If I didn't, I'd stop doing it. But I truly believe in everything we do. I believe we're doing a greater good. I believe we're providing a service. And I believe what you're providing is more than a service. Anybody in the health and fitness industry who does the right thing, who produces things to help people perform, people to move, people to live. Dude, the reason your healthcare costs are so high and the reason it's obesity. Obesity and inactivity and being unhealthy. And what we're doing is helping to combat that. Every person you get into lifting weights is a life saved. Period. Mm-hmm. You and I are part of the good in society. Anybody involved in making people healthier and fit, like people who say, no one can say you're a rip-off artist. No one can say you're a scam artist. How the fuck are you scamming people with a SS yoke bar?
Yeah.
Like, that's not a scam. I just have 2 of them in my car. I picked them up this morning. By the way, they're amazing. Dude, like, here's the thing, like, first thing I'm like, I'm going there. I'm like, cool. I contacted Matt, your guy Matt, and I'm like, hey man, I need to place an order for my gym. So I got bands, I got mats, I got clamps, I got two yoke bars because that's all I could fit in my car. And what you do is awesome. So that's why I think
I need to get you out on the podcast, next month? Because if you come back each month and keep buying shit, that works.
I literally paid to be here. How much did he pay you to be here? Actually, I have a $2,000 invoice. No, but I mean, at the end of the day, what you're doing, and you have to realize that it's anybody who helps people move and exercise is saving lives. Period.
What prompted you to start Scivation?
So at the time, I worked for Weeder Publications. So my clients were Muscle Tech, VPX, good old Jack Owak.
So selling ads?
I was selling ads.
Okay.
And then we were bought by American Media. So I was actually selling ads for corporate ads. I was selling to Nissan, Toyota, Nike. I was selling for the Inquirer, Mira and Espanol, Country Weekly. Like, I became like that guy. I was 22 years old.
Wow.
With an entire team under.
That's kind of fucked up though, right, man? Because you're like Jack because you're with Weeder.
Yeah.
And now you're selling ads for Country Weekly.
Man, I do a lot of things for money, bro. I mean, they bought the company, and this dude, his name was Larry Bornstein, and he was the largest Jew I've ever seen. This guy was like Bill Goldberg on more steroids. I was like, calls me into his office. He goes, I thought I was getting fired. Because they fired 80% of the staff when they came in. They came in, they were like, we're not firing anybody. Mm-hmm. Then like a week later, all I saw was tears and security guards and boxes.
Story.
It was, but I'm still there for some reason. So Larry calls me into his office and he goes, have you seen your numbers? I'm like, yeah. I crush it. I'm like, my numbers are fucking great. I'm like, fuck it, I'm getting fired, I don't care. And he goes, they're fucking you. Just like that. He's like, well, what do you mean they're fucking me? He goes, you're getting underpaid. He's like, you need to be running shit here. I'm like, I'm 22 fucking years old. Like what? So he literally tripled my salary and put a team under me and made and it was crazy. And I'm like, holy shit. So I'm literally running this fucking arm, and selling ads for tabloids. And it was fucking amazing. And so that was the best experience ever. But in 2004, I had this revelation, this thought that I'm done here. I'm topped out. And I felt like even though I was making all this money, I just didn't feel fulfilled. And my wife was making good money. She was a marketing director. My wife's fucking talented. Like, she's great. And I'm like, you know what? I know we're making all this money, this good fucking California money, but like, I'm going to start my own brand. She's like, you're fucking crazy. But she supported me. So again, goes back to, I've always been big on the brain because I've always had issues like channeling my energy. So I came out with so I'm like, I'm going to start a company. It's going to be Science and Innovation. It's called Scivation. That's how the name was formed. Mm-hmm. And my first product was a product called NeuroStim. And it was, at the time, it tasted like shit because I didn't know how to flavor anything, but it worked. It had mega doses of Alcar and had a huperzine. I forgot the exact ingredient. It's been a while. It's been a long time, 2004. And so anyway, what we did is we made, I think it was 500 units, and we made like 1,000 sample packs. So my wife and I, we went on message boards. Like T-Mag, it wasn't T-Mag, but the other ones went on, and we got people's like, hey, sign up for a free sample. So we got like 1,000 names. My wife and I sat at the kitchen table and put them in envelopes and mailed them out. So we sold through the bottles. We did it again. But I literally quit my mega 6-figure plus job at Weider at 24 years old to do this. Mm-hmm. And after that, we came out with PrimaForce, came out with Substance WPI, which was whey protein, grape and watermelon. And after that, we realized there was no good tasting branch chain on the market. At the time, the data on branch chains were wrestlers and muscle wasting, and they actually were promising. So we're like, dude, if we can make this taste good and they could drink it during training, we think that's when the time it would be best consumed would be. So we were just fucking around, and there was Beverly made something called Glutamine Select, and there was one called Ice by Extreme Formulations. And we were messing around with those, like we were kind of trying to make the flavor better. And one of a guy who worked with us, his name was Dennis DeRoe. He owns a place called Unlimited Nutrition in Burlington, North Carolina still. And Dennis put citrulline malate, which was hot at the time due to Patrick Arnold, in ice. And it made it taste so much better. And at that time, citrulline was the shit. Mm-hmm. It still is. I still love citrulline. So we put citrulline, and we took our current flavor we're working on, put citrulline in it, and it tasted amazing. So again, back to grape and watermelon. For some reason, I always did grape and watermelon. And cool news, we launched it. Bad news, nobody bought it. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I took my Toyota Corolla, my 2003 Toyota Corolla, loaded up the back as much as I could with Extend, and drove store to store. I'd be gone for 3 weeks at a time. And I'd try to sell into any store that would listen to me. So we're starting to get traction. People are starting to believe it. We're getting the messaging out about mTOR and all that. And finally, I think it was like 2007. This is like 3 years later. We hit a tipping point. Went from like a million in sales to like a fuckload in sales. Next thing you know, it created a category, the intra-workout category, and it's now owned by Cellucor. So the main reason we came out with Scivation, to be honest with you, is because proprietary blends. I was so pissed off at brands hiding behind proprietary blends where people didn't even know what ingredients they were getting, that I wanted to launch a brand where people actually knew what they were getting. So it was us and I believe Core Nutritionals, which Doug Miller still owns. We were the first two to really go out there and not have proprietary blends. Mm-hmm.
Why stay in it? If you exited it, why go back into the supplement industry?
I don't think my work was done. I felt I could do more. And there were some things that went on that I can't really talk about that I just had to prove people wrong. Mm-hmm. People say things. And I'm one of those guys, if you say I can't do something, I'm going to go to the grave trying. And I'll tell you this, that shit that was said, I proved it the fuck wrong. Mm-hmm. Multiple times over. I was told I could never run a mainstream company because I'm Mark, because I'm too hyper, because I'm too honest, because I'm too this, I'm too that. Outright's in 100,000 plus locations. That's pretty fucking mainstream, isn't it? Planta's the #1 plant protein and vitamin shop. So when someone tells me I can't do something, I was told how many times, dude, we go on the internet, do a Google search. I was told so many times I would never get a pro card. Dude, if I had a doll, like I'd be a multi-gazillionaire. I'm an IFBB pro. All right. And next year, I've done a good job at proving people wrong. And I live every day with revenge in my mind. So those moments that usually hurt people, that people put you down, I don't forget them.
Yeah. When that start, that live in the moments with revenge type of thing?
When I was a kid. Dude, I had a shitty fucking childhood at times. And for some reason, I don't know if it was because I was a dick or what, but teachers just wanted to tell me I'd never amount to anything. And even coaches would want to tell me I'd never amount to anything, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. And it just seemed like, I'm not going to lie, like I was suicidal for most of my life. I didn't care if I died. So I didn't care. I just didn't care. My life was not worth living. I was expendable. But instead of ending everything one day, I don't know when it was. I think it was Coach Miles, really, because I said, fuck it. I'm going to use this as ammo. And to this day, like I'll remember when after I left Weider, I actually left Weider before. I missed this part. So I started Instone with Sylvester Stallone. And the CEO was Patrick Arnold's brother, John Arnold. And the other guy running it was Vince Andrich. And they did me dirty. And Vince and Vince stabbed me in the back. Yeah, Vince, you fucking stabbed me in the back. And John Arnold said some things, man. He was like, you're not the guy. You can't grow anything. You say stupid things. Okay. All right. I put that shit, I put it right in the front. It stayed right here, right in the frontal, right here, right here. And for years, I'd hear that over and over. Every time I doubted myself, I said, fuck that guy. I do not forgive. And I do not forget when someone's that vile of a person. He's the one, there's some people, but you know what? I'm glad he's there. Because of John Arnold. John Arnold is probably the reason for millions of dollars in wealth that I've amassed over time. Because that guy, again, like I can't think of a bigger piece of shit. And I'll say this is 2004, dude. So when you say, oh, you got to forget, no. I say you bottle that up. Use it as ammo. It's not like I'm in bed with my wife. I'm like, man, I really hate John Arnold. Yeah. But if I'm digging deep at something, have you ever, okay, I know you have. Have you ever been under that squat rack and you're trying to think of something that gives you that little extra fire? And you think about that time that somebody did you dirty. And you think about that time that someone said that you can't do something.
That's so ingrained in me, it never goes away.
It won't. You can't forget. You don't want to forget that. You need to be, because people are going to try and screw you over. Like I talked about my daughter earlier, about club soccer, and these vile people have no business being coaches. No business. And I hope that she takes that and she thinks to herself, she's like, the other day she's like, I don't understand why that happened. I'm like, well, honey, there's bad people in this world. And all you could do is live every day being good and proving them wrong. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. I hold that. I still remember, and I'm not going to hide it. Like, I'm not going to talk about this. I don't have a non-disclosure with that guy, right? Like, I can say all I want. There's other things I do that I'm not going to say anything. There's some things I won't. But that guy, yeah, I still think about it. This is almost 20 years later, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. I'll never forget it.
Those thoughts, I think most people have those type of thoughts, vengeance. That's probably a poor word to describe it. But this Coach Miles taught you how to use it positively instead of negatively. So circumstances, you can use them in spite of or despite of. Yes. Right. So every story is, kind of plays that path. It's interesting now, 3 decades later, you're in a position to where now you're in front of kids, and you're working with kids in that same position to be able to be that Coach Miles.
Yes.
Which when you think about that and you think of all the things that you've accomplished, it's kind of more exciting and more rewarding thinking about the things that have yet to be accomplished.
Oh God, it's what I strive for every day. You know, man, we get so many kids open up to us, and there's something about training with someone. I know you've had a training partner. When you exhaust yourself, like nothing's more vulnerable than being so exhausted that you can't fucking stand up because you just did a set to failure. Like there's something about the culture at Legacy. These kids play for teams. On Friday night, they're going to be trying to kill each other. But when they're in that gym, when they're in our facility, they're family. Like we see kids from rival schools every day coming together and helping each other and pushing each other. And now they're at the point where they're talking shit to each other, and I love it. And I'm looking at this like, this is what it's all about. Like you look at, Steven or Seamus, my training partner, and Bryce. When we train, like we're going to battle. And you're doing this alongside a friend. You're doing this alongside someone, and there's nothing that will ever replace the bond of a training partner. If you have a true training partner, there is nothing that will ever replace that bond. And that's why I was saying earlier, like Leon Hatton was the dude. I told my wife, I'm like, we got to find, I've been trying to find him for like 5-10 years. He was the guy who trained with us, me and Coach Miles. And I just want to thank him. He doesn't even fucking know. He's just like, I train with this short white kid. It's like, can't believe that guy did anything. He's a ghost on social. He's the only one, right? He's the only one who didn't find social media. Everybody else, you could just, there's like 400 of these guys. And it's like, I just want to thank him because they didn't even know it, but I was in such a dark place. And I've been to those dark places, and I don't want anybody to have to go there. And it pains me to see stories of people in dark places because it's really hard to climb out. And I'm fortunate that, I met my wife in high school. She helped me climb out of that dark hole because nothing cures, a bad situation like love, like affection, like the human touch. And that's something that my wife was able to offer me at a time when I really needed it. So if you were to interview me on this podcast 5 years ago, this wouldn't have gone this way. But you're a little bit older, right? We've gotten older. Oh, yeah. With age comes perspective. And with age come experience. With experience comes wisdom. And as we get older, we see things in a different light. Whereas Chris Gethin says it best, knowledge without mileage is bullshit. You need to have that experience. You need to have those experiences. You need to look back. And I'm not afraid to say, people are like, oh, no, you're better than that. Like holding a grudge. No, we're not. Like, it's not a sin. It's because I'm not going to go beat the guy up. But it drives me. And I'm driven by negativity. Negativity fuels me. I'm that guy in the gym where like Bryce like, come on, get in a set. You came in 16th, you suck. I'm fuck you, Bryce. It's like, okay, that drives me because I grew up in a situation where I had to fight negativity. So for me, positive reinforcement, hey Mark, you're great. I'm like, shut up, you're lying. So you'll see me self-depreciate online. Like, yeah, I know I'm not the best, but I'm gonna try. It's like, that's really what I think. I know I'm not. But I'm going to work the fucking hardest to be there. Like, I didn't get to where I'm at by just riding on, a silver spoon or a trust fund. Every brick on my house, my wife and I put on that damn house. Those are our bricks. That is our house.
I founded the company under the aim of live, learn, pass on, which is something I highly, strongly, I wouldn't have the company for 25 years if that wasn't the whole case. And it was for people like Coach Miles and yourself now, because you're in that position. Because in say a year period of time, you may have 200 kids come through your door, maybe 300, I don't know. Say 200, who gives, whatever. 200 kids come through your door, right? Your background, what you've gone through, the shit that you've had to go through, you're going to be able to see the one or two that are dealing with shit that only you know how to spot and recognize because you've been there and in many ways still are there. You can relate and help those two, right? And those two can go on to do amazing things.
They
They
can
can
run the
start a
world.
supplement company. They
They-
can go. They can,
They can cure cancer. Who knows? Like the world, the sky is the limit for these kids. Like that's the thing. A kid is, if you're a John Locke kind of guy, it's a clean slate. Like, and even if it's not a clean slate, it's a slate it can be molded. It's a slate that is completely moldable, where if you get someone early enough, you're able to correct an action, you're able to correct a behavior. You can get that kid. I mean, you're looking at the difference between a life of suffering and a life of just prosperity.
yeah.
And that's what sports, again, my main take home for everybody is that sport, and when I say sport, I mean even if you go to Lifetime Fitness twice a week, like there's something about training that I wish everybody understood. People who are naysayers or this and that, I wish everybody understood the mental health and understood the joy that training and sport bring to the world. And if the world was like a gym, it'd be the most happy place on earth. I've experienced racism once at a gym. Once this guy said some stupid comment, but it wasn't like outward. It was like this guy said a comment. I'm like, don't say that. He thought because I was white, I guess, that I'm cool with that. Well, I'm like, no, stop. But like you go into like Iron Addicts, like you go into our gym with CT, man. You come to an event, there's no color. As CT says, we're all the same under the bar. It's under the bar, I think you might have sued him for that. Yeah. But we're all the same under the bar. And it's true. I've seen blood spotting Crips. I've seen everything at that gym. And it's the great equalizer, where I've never seen someone not spot someone because the color of their skin. I've never seen someone not help someone, except for these young kids, these influencers. They're crazy. Yeah. But like the guys, the real ones, the people who are there to train and not just film themselves looking cool in the gym, not even lifting hard. Those, man, it's like you'll never find community like you'll find at the gym or in sport.
Now, as we've spun this all the way back, when we dial back on these things and we remove the things that were adverse but drove you, right? Because in a lot of ways, while you can call it revengeance and all this other stuff, you're actually grateful and thankful to those people because they pushed you.
I love it. I love it. Being screwed over was the greatest thing that happened to me. Losing is great.
Yeah. So if we remove those things, because those are more drivers, and then look back through, what are some of the things, mistakes, obstacles that could have been avoided had you had the wisdom and the experience that you have now going back through?
I think focusing more on being a better husband. That's it. Everything else I've done right as I could have done, within my power. Business-wise, I don't make very many mistakes. I'm pretty good at it. Training-wise, there's no wrong way to train, right? We're always learning, except for the way high schools do it, right? But I think where I lost, or where I completely sold the bag, as my kids say, is, I lost focus of what was important in life. And that's the only regret I have. I have no other regrets. Everything else was just growing up, learning. But yeah, that's the thing that if I could change, that would be it. I would change probably 2, 3, maybe 4 years of, lack of focus on what's important in life. And yeah, that there's really nothing else I'd change. I mean, everything else was just maturing.
I think, change is a bad way to frame the question. More along the lines of, it's being in retail, if did you get fucked because you were an S corp instead of a LLC? You know, things like that that you're like, fuck, I wish I would have not known I had to pay inventory on that or tax on shit.
No, we had good advisors. I have my CPA is great. I mean, we've done everything. I mean, as far as we haven't had any major mistakes on corporations. You know, S corp was always the right move. We have some C corps was our right move for the certain companies. My CPA David Pope, he's just been phenomenal, from what I can tell. So, as far as business goes, like, I don't. I mean, there are some company launches that weren't good ideas. With certain, I'm not going to go. I can't. I'm not going to shit on people. But you know.
Well, you know what? We can talk about partners though.
Yeah.
Let's say you get involved in, because sometimes partners are a great thing, as you've seen.
Yeah. Sometimes
they're really bad.
Most of the time they're worst.
Yeah, and I would say so, because when people ask me and they're thinking about starting a business, one of the first things out of my mouth is don't get a partner.
The only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that you are aligned with your partner in values, and you also have to make sure that you're not the same. You have to make sure that you complement each other and not contradict each other. And that's very hard to do. I've been very fortunate, but let's just say in the past, it didn't work out. But the 2 partnership scenarios I have now, 3, are great. And Tiger Fitness wouldn't be where it's at if Chad didn't have me and I didn't have Chad. And Ambrosia wouldn't be where it's at without the collective, without me, Sean, and Mike. So those are anomalies, very bad anomalies. I could also point to how many millions I've lost with other partnerships. Mm-hmm. Not hundreds of thousands, not thousands, millions. Not 1 million, millions, plural. So luckily for me, the good partnerships and the shit I did on my own more than made up for the bad ones. But overall, I would say that if you're going into business, don't get partners.
Yeah.
Don't have partners. I'm lucky. I'm the anomaly. And I can say that now because it's been long enough where we could all cash out and retire. But 99% of the time, the story is the exact opposite. Somebody's getting screwed.
Most of the time, the stories that I hear is that.
Yes, that's 99% might be low.
But it's to your point though. When it works, it really works.
Oh my God, it's a honeymoon. Like, I live every day, and again, I talk to Chad and Sean and Mike as well more than I talk to my wife. And my wife's also my partner in the companies we have, obviously. She's a partner. It's a great situation. So again, you have to have the right partners, and you have to make sure that it's complementary, not contradictory, which you can't tell at the beginning, because I have partnerships in the past where it looked great, and I have more. Here's the thing, I point to 2 of the successful ones. I'm going to give you the number of how many unsuccessful ones I've had. It's like, hey, let's do this together. I'm like, cool, sounds good side project. Nah. And it's never, from my standpoint, it's never been my fault. Mm-hmm. I'm always 100% and they're always 0. So again, it's situationally dependent.
Were there any topics that you wanted to discuss that I didn't bring up?
Man, we've talked about everything.
Because that was my hardest thing putting the notes together. Is there's a lot.
We can literally sit here for 4 days if I brought up. Because I mean, dude, I don't want to fanboy, but like I was telling everybody when I came in, I'm like, this is like. For a while, I was getting on some really big, like, for some reason, I became like the fitness guy for conservatives. So I'm going on like the Jesse Kelly show and Tim Pool, and they're like, and I was like, yeah, this is cool, but it was like, this is the first time, I'll be honest, I don't want to sound weird, I'm a little bit starstruck because I've been following your stuff since way back. I'm talking like, and that's weird for me. People used to say that about me.
Yeah, imagine how I feel right now.
Dude, check it. Bro, I'm backstage, and he got like 3rd in the open. This guy's like fucking 800 pounds jacked. Like, I don't even know. He was so big. He's like, man, I want to thank you. I mean, I got into fitness because you guys like 280. Yeah. And he's like, I'm like, when did you start watching me? He's like, I was 10. I'm like, ah.
So I know it's fucked up. Right?
You're that guy to me.
It's fucked up.
I was probably 20.
Yeah.
I think I started watching your stuff when I started getting into. It was when I started at I think I was 17. I was right in college, and it was when I first started powerlifting. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was watching you and Louie. I was like, these guys, Tate and Louie, and I'm like, oh shit, and everybody's like, who the fuck are these guys? I'm the guy watching it. I'm like, these guys are fucking legends. Mm-hmm. And now I'm sitting here. So all week, if you ask anybody, we're going to Ohio, and it's really awesome to be here. What you've built, just saying, just not exaggerating, but you're a pioneer. You're the reason the industry is where it's at. You're one of the players, and you know this, but the work you put in is not unnoticed. So it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's crazy.
That.
It's nuts to even be here. I walked in here, I'm like, oh. And I don't really get I don't get that way usually. I'm the guy who could walk into some building that's all artsy. I'm like, okay. We'll go see ruins in Mexico. I'm like, oh, cool, old shit. Mm-hmm. But this is dope. I'm like, this is great.
I'll bring up a question now that you said that, because you've been all over, right? And I used to do seminars all over the place. So it was always interesting, because some days I could be in a university setting with 3,000 kids. So the next day I could be in a bomb shelter teaching people how to squat, bench, and deadlift, right? So every gym's got a different environment, different cultures, and all the other things. And there's certain things that you kind of expect and don't expect. What are some of the ones that you walked into that exceeded expectations, and then other ones that you're like, what the fuck? How do we do this without saying names? So go with the ones that you were disappointed in what you thought you were going to see without saying the actual name of the gym.
I will. I think I think I love going there, and I love Brian, but Metroflex, it's a little too grunge for me, Mm-hmm. I went to do dumbbells and the bars were bent. I couldn't even hold them. It's they're almost too hard on the weights. I understand. It's awesome to train there, but it was almost I don't even know what to do here, because everything's broken. Yeah. And the dumbbells are in a corner, and it's probably because I'm a pussy, but I was I'm used to training at that time, I think I was training at Lifetime. Okay, so don't hold that against me.
Well, that will change your perception of that.
I'm well, where's the fucking sauna and steam room, bro? Mm-hmm. And so I think, and I think sometimes franchises, again, we look at a ton of them, but when you walk, and so then I got used to Metroflex. I trained there a few times with Ronnie and Big J, and I'm like, now I love it. So I'll be real. Mm-hmm. I grew to love it, because it's not about the weights, it's about the culture, the atmosphere, the history. So the first time I walked in there, and I was a little weirded out. I'm a bit of a clean freak, hypochondriac, and he had duct tape on the toilet seat. And I had to take a shit. And I'm like, duct tape, literally is fabric. That's nasty.
The other people's shit is on the duct tape.
Yeah, there's shit on the duct tape. I'm like, so I had to go drive and go take a shit somewhere else. And I'm just being real. I don't know if he's fixed the toilet seat. Brian, I love you to death, all right? So that was one. But again, I love it now. But the first time I went there, I was like, oh. But I think some letdowns, not all of them. There's some, Tyler, Texas is great. But when you have a franchise name, and they don't have Metroflex, some of them are fuck, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. And some of them are how'd they give you this name? So, because there's a lot of them now, and we've had the same issues with other franchises. So I think that Metroflex is the one that I learned to love. The ones that I think it's environment, I always love going to Smelly's, Mark Bell's. He's built this cool, it's got a free gym vibe. His brother's there managing it now. I've always been Mark's always been so nice, so good to me. I think if anybody's up there, it's always good to stop by and say hi.
Yeah.
They're the nicest guys, him and Sema, all those guys. Honestly, for me, I tend to see gyms and honestly, right now, I can't even train at an LA Fitness or Lifetime. I know it's there, and I'm going there because I want a spa day. And I'm a member. It's right by my house. So sometimes I just want to use the sauna, use the shower, get a little. They have a swimming pool. It's great. But really, the biggest letdowns for me are where I used to train all the time. I can't train anymore at a commercial gym. It's hard. 24-hour LA Fitness. Those gyms are just really hard for me to get a workout in, because the environment is just so vanilla. So honestly, like any hardcore gym, and there's a lot of them, it doesn't matter how shitty the equipment is. It doesn't matter as long as there's no duct tape on the toilet. I mean, dude, if you give me a good environment, I'll make anything work. Because Iron Addicts is kind of like that. We don't got the best equipment, but it's like CT's house. So you're in there, you get the history. Honestly, just love the gym. And I love the atmosphere, and I love being there. Planet Fitness, obviously, we know what to expect. Like, sometimes I have to go there when traveling, and you're not having a good workout. You're just not. It's not gonna.
So where would be your go-to place when you're traveling, because you travel a lot?
Lifetime.
Okay.
Or local. If I'm in an area where there's usually a hardcore gym, so I'll usually. But unfortunately, if you're traveling on weekends, like for soccer tournaments, gyms that are like hardcore, they don't have good weekend hours. So sometimes, like I'm with Cammie or Thomas, and they have like a wrestling meet, and I have to go early in the morning, and they're not open till like 10. So I'll have to go to like a Lifetime. So Lifetime Fitness I keep for when I'm traveling, and I don't recommend that for most. It's so expensive. So what I recommend for people to do usually is get a Planet Fitness membership. If you don't want to miss workouts, if you want to do your cardio, you want whatever, it's $20 a month, and you can go to any of them. And there's one in every city. And I know a lot of people, why would you support them? Well, I'm like, bro, they are what they are. I just want to make sure I get a workout in. And a day pass at Planet Fitness is the same price as a month. So if you use it once a month or 12 times a year, it's just an insurance policy. But honestly, like, I'll train anywhere. You know, it's like, I'll make it work. But most places, luckily, if I'm there during normal training hours, I know a good gym in just about every city that I would travel to. Like I'm going to Des Moines next week. Sheamus is fighting on SmackDown, and I'm meeting with Hy-Vee. And I'm like, dude, the Gold's gym there is dope. We'll go train there. Sheamus is like, fuck yeah, fella. I'm like, let's go. Yeah. So, you know, luckily for me, most places that I travel to, I know the area. I'm not randomly going to crazy. Like we know we're headquarters of Target, Walmart, Vitamin Shop, all those areas. I know the gyms. So where I go is usually consistent.
So you're easy to find. So for all the haters that are looking for you,
I've been waiting for someone to beat me up. Like, here's the thing, man. Like, I've had my ass kicked so many times. I won't unless I truly have to defend myself. You're not going to catch me fighting back. God forbid I land a punch and the kid falls down, hits his head on the ground. I just killed a guy. And you see that happen so much. Dude, there's a guy I knew in Texas. He was an MMA guy. So he was like 2 weeks out from a fight camp. He was the shape of his life. His buddy calls him from the club, all right, to pick him up. He's like, fuck, man, whatever. It's like 2 a.m., club's closing. So he comes out. He's waiting outside his car. Mistaken identities. Dudes come up, try to fight him. What do you think happened? First dude threw a punch, pow, falls, hits the ground. Second dude throws a punch, slips it, pow, hits him. $50,000 in court fees later, he was finally exonerated. So he goes, how do I get that money back? They're like, no, you don't get it back. Yeah. So like, you do anything, even defend yourself, like you could still catch a case. So I'm not fighting. I'm going to sue you. I'm calling the cops. I'm not hiding from anybody, but at the same time, I'm not. It's one guy. He's like, hey, it's so funny. He goes, I'm like, dude. He's like, oh, I want to fight you, this and that, for some reason. I'm like, cool. I'm like, well, here's where I'm at. He's like, come to LA. I'm like, okay, hold on. So you want me to spend money to come to you so you could beat me up? That doesn't sound like a good idea. Yeah. These people are crazy. Yes. Why does anybody want to fight? It's such a waste of time. Like, and why would anybody, like, what did I do to, like, I can understand, man, I don't like that guy. But like the whole, man, I'm going to beat you up. It's like, why? Like, why can't you just call me names like everybody else?
Maybe it's just 20 years of being online. You know, it's just accumulated
hate. Yeah, I guess so.
Haters.
This guy seemed mad.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome talking to you. We could go on forever. Any parting thoughts that you have before I shut this down?
Yeah, man. It's I just want to throw this back to you, man. It's really been an honor to be here. It's one of the highlights of my career, honestly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Guys, we're done. That's my close.
That's a hell of a close. You know, that's your catchphrase. Guys, we're done.
Yeah.
I like it.